Chapter 543 The Descent of the Supreme Demon Realm. In the depths of the cosmos, countless meteorites, ablaze with fiery flames, tore through the great chaos mists, rushing unstoppably in the same direction, creating a sight of unparalleled grandeur. The appearance of this group of meteorites alarmed the mighty beings within the universe, as countless divine senses reached out toward them. Upon an unmoving meteorite, Isaiah from Human World Peak was meditating in this area. He suddenly opened his eyes, and was immediately startled by the swarm of meteorites approaching from the depths of the universe. He could feel the powerful forces contained within those meteorites, which even instinctively made him feel fearful. He immediately cast a spell to form a barrier, concealing himself. Soon meteorites skimmed over him, their terrifying force causing the meteorite beneath him to tremble. Is that? Isaiah's pupils suddenly narrowed, and he saw a figure standing on one of the meteorites. Could this be a force? Looking in the direction they were flying, Isaiah's expression darkened. That direction was precisely toward the celestial spirit great world. Thinking about the changes in the celestial spirit great world over the years, Isaiah's heart filled with worry. He always felt that the tribulation of the celestial spirit great world was not due to internal factors. It seemed that some supremely powerful entity was manipulating everything. The death of young immortal emperor was the best proof. After all the meteorites disappeared into the darkness, Isaiah hesitated for a moment, then finally flew in the opposite direction. He chose to preserve himself. At the same time, in the celestial spirit great world, beings of high realm also sensed the threat from beyond heaven. In the third medicine valley, Long Jun stood on the cliff, gazing up at the celestial vault, his expression serene. Candle Star appeared beside him and whispered, "It's the people from the Supreme Demon Realm. I sense the aura of the Supreme Demon Emperor, their current leader." "Such a vast scheme," Long Jun murmured. "They want to eliminate every thorn in their side. The destiny of the heavenly Tao has changed." "Changed? What do you mean?" Candle Star asked, confused. Long Jun answered, "The future I saw has already altered. At the very least, the Supreme Demon Realm should not have appeared." Hearing this, Candle Star furrowed his brows. In his eyes, Long Jun's cultivation level was profound. He could traverse from the past to the present, and his Tao practice might not be inferior to the Silent Destruction God Emperor. At least the Silent Destruction God Emperor did not possess such a capability to cross through antiquity and the present. Facing the anomalies in the heavenly Tao, what should we do? Candle Star asked. He had already bet everything on Long Qing, and there was no turning back, and since Long Jun was Long Qing's ancestor, the two stood on the same side. He now greatly trusted Long Jun continue to lie low, and wait for that young one to master the celestial dragon Dharma aspect, answered Long Jun, his voice calm. Candle Star then inquired, "Should we start preparing a concubine for him?" "It can begin now, after all. I cannot see the upcoming situation clearly either. It's better to be prepared earlier." "Good, I will start the selection process." At the boundless mountain range, Liya and Sword Annihilation Ancestor reached the edge of the forest, looking out over the magnificent mountains ahead. Liya turned and looked at Sword Annihilation Ancestor, asking, "Master, did you feel it?" Sword Annihilation Ancestor furrowed his brows tightly and replied, "It's the aura of the Supreme Demon Realm. Their goal is to devour great heaven and earth, and now they dare set their sights on the celestial spirit great world. There must be something fishy behind this." "The Supreme Demon Realm? Are they formidable?" Liya asked curiously. Sword Annihilation Ancestor began to describe the Supreme Demon Realm. The Supreme Demon Realm was born before the shattering of the celestial spirit great world. They once were an overlord-level power in a great world. After the shattering of the great world, they founded the Supreme Demon Realm, building various demon cities to invade the great heaven and earth, refining magical treasures with the power of the great world, and transforming the blood sacrifices of all living beings into their own Tao practice. Even the heavenly demon within the silent extinction domain seems negligible compared to the Supreme Demon Realm. Listening to the power and style of the Supreme Demon Realm, Liya also felt worried. Such demon race forces descending upon the celestial spirit great world were definitely not benevolent. Sword Annihilation Ancestor looked at Leah and said, I will pass on to you one last divine skill. After this, I truly have to leave. The two had parted several times, and each time Leah faced peril, Sword Annihilation Ancestor always couldn't help but intervene. This time, Sword Annihilation Ancestor spoke earnestly, making Leah feel his determination. Leah couldn't help but ask, Master, where are you going? To the place from whence I came. Sword Annihilation Ancestor answered calmly. What about the cause and effect you spoke of earlier? How should I handle it? Hearing Leah mention the conditions of their discipleship, Sword Annihilation Ancestor deeply gazed at him and said, Do not deliberately think about it. As you grow stronger, the cause and effect of your master will naturally involve you. Remember, this divine skill must not be used unless it's a matter of life and death. Seeing his master so serious, Leah could only nod, acknowledging his words. His heart, however, was filled with anticipation. The Supreme Demon Realm, huh? He wanted to see how powerful the Supreme Demon Realm was, what made it capable of frightening his master away. Boom! Heaven and earth trembled, startling everyone within the Taoist field of the beginningless. They gathered in Gu An's courtyard to discuss the unusual disturbances in heaven and earth. They could see many meteors from outer heaven falling on the horizon, a magnificent sight, followed by a nearly world-ending terrifying pressure. Sir, the novel fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Is this demonic chi? Could it be another invasion by the heavenly demon? It feels different from the aura of the heavenly demon, such a heavy scent of blood. I wonder if there are others besides our master and young immortal emperor, who can save this world from continuous trials. There are countless strong beings in the world, but few who dare shoulder the safety of all living beings. While they were discussing worldly affairs, the door opened and Guan walked out from inside the house. Everyone immediately turned and greeted him. Guan surveyed them and asked, How about you all go out and save the world? As soon as he said this, everyone felt awkward, and Shengtian and Chen Chuan, who had been very vocal earlier, were blushing. Of course, Blood Prison Great Saint, who had been the loudest, just grinned shamelessly. Shenzhen was also snickering. She hadn't joined the discussion, so she didn't feel embarrassed. Go back to your cultivations. The calamity outside won't affect the dojo. With these words, Guan walked towards the courtyard gate. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other and breathed a sigh of relief. The aura from the Supreme Demon Realm was indeed too strong. Even while staying inside the dojo, they instinctively felt fear, making it difficult to cultivate peacefully. Hearing Gu An's words, they completely let go of their worries. The oppression from the Supreme Demon Realm was far less than their trust in Gu, and Shenzhen quickly caught up with Gu An's steps. After leaving the courtyard, they walked into the forest along the mountain path. Gu An's courtyard was located at the mountain's peak. The flowers and grass were lush, and the trees were tall. Walking among the trees, the speckled sunlight that fell looked so serene and mystical. If I paint the demons outside right now, will it cause trouble? Shenzhen stepped forward, walking shoulder to shoulder with Guan, and asked softly. Guan smiled and said, You're scared too? Just paint if you want to. Hearing this, Shenzhen's face lit up with a smile. She curiously asked, Such terrifying demonic chi doesn't intimidate you? What kind of being is worthy of being your opponent? A breeze blew through the forest, cooling Gu An's face. My opponent has already appeared. Gu An's statement spiked Shenzhen's curiosity. Unfortunately, her cultivation level was too low. In the previous disasters of the human world, she hadn't seen those world-shaking demonic figures. Search the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 544. Neither God nor demon. Dark clouds churned, and thunder rumbled incessantly as the vast ocean rose in angry waves, and heavy rain scattered with the wind. Amid those alarming surges, one could vaguely make out the shocking sight of corpses. Looking into the distance, one could see a fierce battle unfolding between the celestial sea. Countless cultivators besieged a demon tens of thousands of feet tall. The demon, human in form, was covered in black fur, dressed in black armor, and wore a horned iron helmet, resembling a war god from the demon realm. Wielding a terrifying great sword, it could cleave the sea and slash the heavens with absolute, tyrannical might. Cultivators' bodies continuously fell, crashing into the gloomy sea and quickly being dispersed by the churning water. Miles away at the edge of the Nine-Spirit continent, Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai stood on a cliff, watching the battle from afar. Waves splashed against the shore, wetting their dresses, but they paid it no mind. How terrifying this demon! Are such demons rampant all over the world? Tang Kai couldn't help but look at Li Xuanyu, exclaiming in awe. Several days ago, numerous meteors from outer heaven had descended, shaking the earth, and not long after, the human world faced a catastrophe. Only a few days had passed, and demons from outer heaven threatened Nine-Spirit continent. Li Xuanyu replied. The demonic chi from outside is indeed heavy, no wonder an Xian wanted us to stay. Tang Kai couldn't help but ask, Sister, you don't think Liu will get into trouble, do you? With his temperament, he's sure to dive right into the thick of it. I'm really afraid he might get seriously injured again. Don't worry, he has his own fortune. His life is much harder than either of ours. Li Xuanyu shook her head slightly and saying so, she turned to leave. Tang Kai took one more look at the distant battle at the edge of the sea, then followed Li Xuanyu's steps. She was curious about the demon's cultivation level, but unfortunately, Li Xuanyu couldn't see through it either. Their experiences were but a microcosm of the world. Every continent and sea was plagued by demons from the supreme demon realm, with countless beings meeting tragic deaths every day. The skies of the human world darkened, signaling a tribulation sweeping across the entire great heaven and earth. The supreme demon realm came only to slaughter. In the sacred domain, within a palace, 7 figures gathered, staring at the throne of the silent destruction god emperor in silence for a long time. One of the women broke the silence. The master hasn't come back yet. Could something have happened? At these words, the faces of the other 6 turned grim. The silent destruction god emperor had been missing for many years. They had not been worried at first, but now with the attack of the supreme demon realm and the god emperor's absence, they couldn't help but be concerned. The supreme demon realm has always hidden in the shadows. Now that they have launched a large-scale invasion of the celestial spirit great world, I fear someone has been guiding them from behind, and that person is likely that one. A middle-aged man inhaled deeply and spoke gravely. He didn't specify who that one was, but everyone understood. The celestial spirit god. The supreme existence of this great thousand world. Once again, the hall fell into silence. Even with the lowest among them being profound yuan-free immortals, the mere thought of the celestial spirit god sent chills down their spines, quelling any thoughts of rebellion or scheming. Just then, the palace began to tremble, and the candles flickered violently, threatening to go out at any moment. All 7 turned to look towards the doorway. Without the holy court, the celestial court appears stronger, yet it seems to have lost its former keen edge. A cold voice came from outside the hall, like a muffled thunder that echoed throughout the sacred domain, audible to all beings within the holy court. The 7 in the hall looked at one another again, none volunteering to speak first. More than the safety of the holy court, they wanted to know where the silent destruction god emperor had gone. They didn't even consider the possibility of the emperor being dead. In their minds, the silent destruction god emperor was an immortal being. If a power such as the holy court could come under attack from the supreme demon realm, what about other sects? The major sects of the Taitsong continent also faced tribulations. The supreme sect, having lost the protection of the supporting Dao sword venerable for over 9,000 years, was once again drawn into the defense battle. Spring gave way to autumn, and 300 years passed in the blink of an eye. The human world entered a bizarre state where demons roamed freely, and it was difficult to distinguish between human and ghost. All living beings were living in constant fear. On the Taitsong continent, within the North Sea mountain ridge, profound mystery sat in front of the pill furnace in the courtyard, looking up at the overcast clouds, his face full of worry. He turned his head to look at the mountain god on the eaves and asked, Mountain god, Is there no one in this world who can drive out the supreme demon realm? 300 years had passed, and the name of the supreme demon realm had spread far and wide. Everyone knew that the evil demons ravaging the human world came from the supreme demon realm. The immortal dynasty had fallen, the holy court had been slaughtered by the supreme demon realm, and the entire world was shrouded in their darkness, with clouds so dense that hope was obscured. Although profound mystery lived in seclusion in the North Sea mountain ridge, occasionally cultivators and demons would pass by, which allowed him to stay informed of major events in the world. Now, even the Tidesong continent was plagued by minions of the supreme demon realm. The powerful demons of the supreme demon realm, once they descended into the human world, recruited many minions. They were also able to nurture more demons, swiftly expanding the influence of the supreme demon realm to cover the entire world. Of course there is, Guan casually replied while sitting on the eaves, whittling a bamboo stick. Otherwise there would be no living creatures left in the human world by now. With the invasion of the supreme demon realm, although the human world suffered greatly, it also gave birth to numerous heroes. Now many great cultivators were preparing to besiege the main city established by the supreme demon realm in the human world, forcing the supreme demon realm on the defensive. CTH Novelfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Guan was but a pawn to the supreme demon realm. The celestial spirit god sought to use the power of the supreme demon realm to force out the heaven and earth Tao fruit. It seemed that the celestial spirit god could not personally annihilate all living beings. It was as though some force in the unseen depths was restraining the celestial spirit god, which made Guan even more curious about the celestial court that lurked behind the celestial spirit god. What sort of order did the celestial court have? And how were its classes of strength and weakness divided? After hearing this, the worry and profound mystery's eyes faded. Having secluded himself in the mountains for over 9,000 years, he too had his own insights. He had felt compassion for the suffering of passers-by, but as time went on, he realized that he couldn't change anything. Moreover, suffering would not vanish. People would always suffer, and the difference lay in whether or not he could see it. A high-pitched dragon's roar echoed between heaven and earth. Profound Mystery looked up and saw a dragon tail appearing in the cloudy sky, twisting like a mountain range, a magnificent sight to behold. This dragon had green scales yet radiated golden light. Filled with curiosity, Profound Mystery asked, "Is this being a god or a demon?" Since the descent of the supreme demon realm, he had occasionally seen celestial beasts appearing, including dragons, but this particular dragon tail gave him a feeling there was an indescribable divinity present. Guan, wearing a mask, looked up and said, "Neither god nor demon, merely a lost soul." That was not a true dragon but someone's dharma aspect. Guan was somewhat curious as well. Could there truly be such a prodigy within the Long clan? This individual was neither Long Xian nor Long Mia. Guan's gaze stretched out toward the third medicine valley of the supreme sect. In Long Qing's practice of the celestial dragon technique, there had been progress. Within Long Jun's domain, he had condensed 12 dharma aspects, one of which was wrapped by a golden dragon, its aura towering. A lost soul. Profound Mystery's curiosity grew, and he stared intently at that dragon tail. At that moment, not only he but creatures across the continent were looking up at that dragon tail. Mortal spirits even thought a true dragon had descended to exterminate demons for them. More and more mortal spirits knelt down, kowtowing towards the dragon tail, crying out and praying. Inside Long Jun's domain, it appeared no different from the surrounding cliffs of the Third Medicine Valley, but in reality, they were in an entirely separate space. Long Qing opened his eyes and turned his head to look, and he was suddenly taken aback. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 545. Heavenly Dao Peak Celestial Emperor. Who is he? As he gazed at the Dharma aspect that was enveloping the golden dragon, Long Qing asked Long Jun. Long Jun looked at the golden dragon Dharma aspect, his expression quite complex, and said, "He is the previous you, your ancestor. Like you, he's a remnant of the Long clan. I crossed through the years to assist him. He failed. but not before leaving a lineage for the Long clan, offering a glimmer of hope. Long Qing hadn't expected that Long Jun had sought out other ancestors before. He realized he was not the most unique. "Can you tell me his story?" Long Qing asked, curious to learn about the life of each Dharma aspect he managed to manifest. Long Jun, although he lived in the distant past, had the ability to see the lives of all his descendants. This time he didn't hold back and began to recount the life story of this member of the Long clan. Long Mang, born without parents or even the protection of servants left by his family, was abandoned in the Great Thousand World, and was taken in by a cultivator from a sect. The first half of his life was relatively stable, until he awakened the bloodline of the Long clan, which drew the attention of the battle court. His master was turned to ash, his wife and children were slaughtered, and his fellow sect members were almost entirely massacred. Had Long Jun not intervened in time, the lineage of the Long clan would have ended with Long Mang. After rescuing Long Mang, Long Jun began to teach him the secret techniques of the Long clan. During his cultivation, Long Mang developed his own understanding of the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. The golden dragon showcased by the Long Mang Dharma aspect was a manifestation of will, allowing him to be more focused and powerful in battle. Once, Long Mang had brought boundless hope to Long Jun. Unfortunately, Long Mang still met his end at the hands of the silent destruction god Emperor, and his grandson even fell victim to the Emperor's possession. The silent destruction god Emperor, always him. What exactly is his relation to the battle court? Why does he continuously possess us? Long Qing asked indignantly, his eyes brimming with murderous intent. Long Jun replied, "He has no direct connection to the battle court, but he covets the bloodline talent of the Long clan. Perhaps he has reached his own limits and can ascend no further." Long Qing took in a deep breath, his fists clenched tightly, and said, "I hope I get the chance to kill him with my own hands in this life." Long Jun remained silent, offering no further conversation. Then, Long Qing closed his eyes and continued to cultivate the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. Since the advent of the supreme demon realm, he had felt a sense of crisis. Setting aside the vast power of the supreme sect, he began to dedicate himself entirely to mastering the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. Hearing of Long Mang's deeds, Long Qing's resolve grew even stronger. He had to master the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. He had to eradicate the battle court. He had to slay the silent destruction god Emperor. And he had to resolve the fate of the Long clan. Far away at the mountain god temple, Guan stood up after listening to Long Mang's story. He bid farewell to profound mysterious Shenren, and then vanished from the eaves. Afterward, Guan spent half a day at Immortal Seeking Island before leisurely returning to the Taoist field of the beginningless. The mischief of demons had made the atmosphere on Immortal Seeking Island even tenser. The number of guards doubled, ready to fend off any attacks by evil demons at a moment's notice. As Guan walked through the forest, he appeared to be leisurely strolling, but in reality, he was calculating the destiny of heaven and earth. The final battle between him and the celestial spirit god was drawing closer. Once the supreme demon realm lures out the heaven and earth Tao fruit, an era that had lasted nearly 10,000 years would come to an end. If Guan didn't act, the celestial spirit great world would certainly be obliterated. Regardless of how many great cultivators there were in the world, or how high the talent of the prodigies, none would matter in the face of the celestial spirit god. Guan looked at his attribute panel. His lifespan had reached over 860 billion years. He was full of confidence. Compared to the celestial spirit gods, he was now more curious about the existence that had created the celestial spirit great world, and where it was hiding. After the arrival of the supreme demon realm, the celestial Tao destiny of the great heaven and earth started to dissipate, gaining a void and ethereal destiny, similar to that of heaven and earth, yet with an added vitality belonging to living beings. Both the celestial Tao golden core and the heaven and earth Tao fruit still existed, proving that the existence which had pioneered the celestial spirit great world had not completely perished. It was merely waiting for the opportunity to resurrect. Whether the celestial Tao light layer that enveloped the great heaven and earth was for protection or restraint would soon reveal its answer. Late at night, a demon cloud shrouded the sky, preventing living beings on earth from seeing a single star. Within a valley surrounded by mountains, Zhu meditated by the lake, her gaze lost in the shimmering water surface. The immortal seeker approached her, gathered up his robe, and sat down on the ground. "Are you afraid?" the immortal seeker asked softly, looking at the lake. Zhu replied, "Of course I'm afraid. But if faced with the annihilation of heaven and earth, the collapse of the universe, I have no choice but to draw my sword against him." The immortal seeker smiled and said, "The situation in the world is becoming increasingly chaotic. The battle court, profound abyss, supreme demon realm, river of sword Tao. Too many powers are vying for advantage. The more chaotic it is, the better. He is too arrogant, believing that his abilities are sufficient to suppress everything in the great thousand world." His tone carried a hint of mockery. Hearing this, Zhu turned to look at him and asked, "Where exactly is the heaven and earth Tao fruit hidden? And when will it appear?" She had made all the preparations she could, just waiting for the heaven and earth Tao fruit to emerge. Sir the novel_fire. @ website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. "Its appearance depends on you," the immortal seeker said leisurely. "When this world gives birth to its own profound yuan-free immortal, the heaven and earth Tao fruit will appear. You can enter the Taoist Zongzizai immortal realm at any time. Plus with the divine skills I've passed on to you. Even if you only step into the role of profound yuan-free immortal briefly, the heaven and earth Tao fruit will reveal itself. Whether it is the great world or a smaller one, they all have their own carrying limits. This shattered world can only sustain one profound yuan-free immortal." After hearing this, Zhu furrowed her brows, falling into hesitation. The immortal seeker continued, "Sheng Tian, do you know who the being at the pinnacle of the heavenly Tao, who commands the immortal gods, is? Who is it?" "Such a being is known as the Celestial Emperor. To become the Celestial Emperor, one must endure 129,600 red dust reincarnation tribulations. The red dust reincarnation tribulation is different from the reincarnation tribulation you know of. No matter how many times you reincarnate, you must act as a savior to truly overcome one red dust reincarnation tribulation. To become the savior, you must wait for periods like the present." Zhu's eyes widened upon hearing this. 129,600 red dust reincarnation tribulations. She couldn't fathom the lengthy hardships one would have to endure for so long. The immortal seeker said in a thought-provoking tone, "The predicament you are facing now may seem irreversible, but that exalted celestial emperor had to face 129,600 such crises to achieve enlightenment. Moreover, the crisis you face is far less severe because you have help and he did not. He had to start as a mortal, continuously breaking his own celestial mandate, only then capable of commanding the heavenly Tao. Your destiny pattern is unparalleled, and you have a heart aspiring to become the strongest, but you must realize that the path to being the mightiest is inevitably fraught with difficulties and requires unstoppable progress." Zhu took a deep breath, and her eyes gradually became resolute. She was unsure of how powerful the Celestial Emperor was, but she knew she first had to overcome the hurdle of the celestial spirit gods. "Even if it means death, I have to fight, especially when there's no way back." The immortal seeker's tone was firm, as if he too was speaking to himself. Search the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 546. Master, what is the profound yuan-free immortal? In the autumn season, the forests within the Taoist field of the beginningless gradually turned yellow and withered. Guan was instructing an Xian in her cultivation by a small river. The fairy, who appeared unfathomably profound in the eyes of Qiankuan's sect disciples, was now wearing a face full of distress, unable to grasp Guan's words. And all at once, an Xian felt ashamed. When she had been instructing the Qiankuan sect disciples, encountering those with dull spiritual root qualifications, she couldn't help feeling somewhat irritated. Yet looking at her master, facing the difficult task of teaching her, he remained composed, and even kept a smile on his face. She felt that her own path was still long. Little did she know, The reason why Guan was smiling was that Liya was taking a beating again. While others teamed up to combat the evil demons from the Supreme Demon Realm, he alone was being pursued by a group of evil demons. Even though Liya was being chased, he did not lose his verbal edge. Every time he was about to be caught, he would burst forth with even stronger power to break out of the encirclement. He was excited, thinking that he had broken through the limit of his physical body, undergoing a transformation amidst the battle. Guan heard his heart's voice and was even more amused. "Oh, senior brother, your potential is my doing." As Guan thought this, he turned to an Exian and said, "If you can't figure it out, then take your time. It's meaningless to think about other useless matters instead of focusing on enlightenment." Upon hearing this, an Exian nodded earnestly. She stopped her wild thoughts and began to review the previous Tao teachings with concentration. Guan noticed her refocused mind and felt satisfied with her attitude. Besides Liya, other old acquaintances were also more or less caught in trouble. In the current times, the scramble for opportunities inevitably involved combat and killing. What Guan was most concerned about, however, was Zhu Xi. Zhu Xi had already stepped into the realm of Taoist Zongzai Immortal, his body exuding the aura of reincarnation, clearly having regained his destiny pattern from his previous life as a saint of Shengtian. It's worth mentioning that Zhu Xi did not go to outer heaven for his breakthrough. They were hidden in an ancient secret realm, and his breakthrough had caused quite a stir, covering the entire celestial spirit great world. However, since the Supreme Demon Realm was causing chaos, the various sects did not fully mobilize to investigate the truth. Zhu Xi, who had reached the realm of Taoist Zongzai Immortal, was preparing to impact an even higher realm, Profound Yuan Free Immortal. Guan was curious about the Immortal Seeker. Although he was a reincarnated being, his cultivation level was not strong in this life. How was he using other forces to help Zhu Xi break through by force? This power reminded Guan of the aura of the god of destruction. The god of destruction was also a god of the celestial court. In Black Profound Emperor's memories, the aura of the god of destruction was different from that of the celestial spirit god, but it was nonetheless related to the celestial Tao aura. The power that the Immortal Seeker borrowed was similar to that of the god of destruction, though there were also differences. Guan sensed carefully and felt that this power might be at the same level as the god of destruction and the celestial spirit god. Compared with the three, none was significantly stronger than the others. Interesting. It seems that there's some cause and effect contradiction within the celestial court itself. While observing the world, Guan repeated his teachings. The content an Exian had already memorized, but the reason he repeated it was that he infused his Tao intent into his voice, allowing the Tao listener to have new realizations with each listening of the same content. Anzin's spiritual root qualification was mediocre, but her comprehension was not bad. For her to have come this far, Guan had expended quite a bit of effort just teaching the Tao. Thankfully, it looked to be worth it. Let's see what kind of existence it is that has allowed the celestial spirit god to hold on until now. Guan looked at an Exian, thinking thus in his heart. In the following autumn, the Nine-Spirit continent remained relatively calm, but the Taitsong continent and other places around the world suffered even more intense shocks. The Supreme Demon Realm seemed to sense something, and became increasingly manic. All over the world, the multitude of living beings felt a sense of oppression. The world isn't really about to end, is it? At dusk, Xian stood beside Guan, looking into the distance with him. Se of the Novel Fire. Net ** website on Google to access chapters of novels early, and in the highest quality. Xian's face was full of worry, because he felt an oppressive aura emanating from outside the dojo, causing all things between heaven and earth to tremble. Even the spiritual energy seemed restless and uneasy. The reason he could sense the situation outside the dojo was because Guan specifically allowed him to feel it. To be precise, he allowed everyone inside the dojo to feel it. At such a time, it is necessary to make the people in the dojo aware, so they would cherish what they have. Perhaps it truly might be the end of the world. Guan said softly, alarming Xian, who looked at him in fear. Xian asked, "If that is so, what about us? With Guan's abilities, he could surely escape to outer heaven, so why choose to seclude in the celestial spirit great world?" This catastrophe will lead to the annihilation of all beings, followed by the shattering of heaven and earth, and even the universe will collapse. Guan began to describe the future, his voice painting one solemn scene after another in Lv Xian's mind, causing his pupils to constrict. After he finished speaking, Lv Xian dully asked, "Why would this happen? Who caused all this? The nature of heaven and earth itself? Or the heavenly Tao?" Thousands of years ago, the concept of the heavenly Tao spread throughout the land, making all living beings aware of its existence. In the obscurity, it is the heavenly Tao that controls everything. Destiny, reincarnation all lie within the heavenly Tao. Study the great Tao, follow the heavenly Tao. Perhaps it is the immortal gods that people admire who are dissatisfied with our world, and soon you will see the truth for yourself, Guan said with profound meaning. Lv Xian subconsciously asked, "How soon is soon?" As soon as the words fell, the ground trembled, and a vast oppressive force descended, enveloping all things between heaven and earth. Lv Xian was immediately intimidated by this force, his eyes widened, showing an expression of utter disbelief. At this moment, a series of figures appeared out of nowhere behind them. It was an Xian, Shenzhen, and others. They looked toward Guan nervously. The sudden oppressive force was truly frightening, prompting them to instinctively seek out Guan. Guan did not turn around. He looked into the distance and said, "Take a good look, recognize the true nature of this world. One day, you will have to face such despair on your own." Hearing this, an Xian was about to speak when a thunderous boom shook heaven and earth. Guan waved his sleeve, and a light screen appeared in front of them, reflecting a vast continent. At this moment, the continent was splitting apart, dust rising, with grand momentum. If one looked closely, amidst the spectacular surging tide, tendrils appeared as if something, a giant demon, was about to break through the soil. "What is that?" Shenzhen couldn't help but ask. No one answered her, and Guan did not explain, but let them continue to watch. As more and more dust arose on the continent, the view on the light screen zoomed out, showing more of the sea areas, while the continent was submerged by the surging waves. Soon, the expressions of an Xian and others began to change, some even with their mouths wide open in shock as if a mortal had seen a ghost. They saw a huge round fruit rising within the mighty surging tide, its surface covered in golden Tao patterns. It was larger than the continent, rising continuously, growing larger and larger. Chen Chuan turned his head to another direction, his eyes wide as he pointed and said in astonishment, "Look over there quickly." Everyone turned to look, and saw a gigantic object appearing on the horizon, the same mysterious giant fruit from the light screen. That is the heaven and earth Tao fruit, the essence of heaven and earth itself. Without it, there would be no heaven and earth, nor would there be all things within heaven and earth, Guan introduced. Without waiting for anyone to ask, he continued, "Someone has reached the level of profound yuan free immortal, prompting the heaven and earth Tao fruit to appear." Profound yuan free immortal? Blood Prison Great Saint asked impatiently, "Master, what is a profound yuan free immortal?" If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 547. The sky is falling after nirvana. The stages are loose immortal, wandering immortal, celestial and earthly immortals, carefree primordial immortal, divine immortal of wondrous dharma, Tao void profound immortal, divine thought true immortal, and free immortal. Guan's voice floated towards everyone. Their eyes widened in awe. CTH Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Guan, fearing they hadn't understood clearly enough, added, "Although Taoist Zongzai immortal and profound yuan free immortal are still considered free immortals, the gap between each level far surpasses the 9 heavens of the immortal path. Once one reaches Taoist Zongzai immortal, they will cultivate a Tao fruit, the so-called Tao fruit." At this point, he stopped and turned his head to look towards the mysterious giant fruit on the horizon. Tao fruit? Chen Chuan couldn't help but ask, "Master, could this heaven and earth Tao fruit possibly be a cultivator's Tao fruit?" The others all looked at Guan, extremely tense, awaiting his answer. Guan replied, "Yes, the heaven and earth Tao fruit is indeed a cultivator's Tao fruit, and the catastrophe of heaven and earth is brought by the enemies who slew him." Everyone was shocked upon hearing this, turning to look at the heaven and earth Tao fruit that was still growing, feeling more powerless than ever. How many years of cultivation would it take to reach such heights? Yet such a being could still be killed. They couldn't fathom what the entity capable of slaying the creator of heaven and earth would be like. But they knew one thing. The sky was falling. Shenzhen looked at the heaven and earth Tao fruit with a strong urge to paint it down, and she instantly disappeared from the spot. An Xian looked at Guan with a hesitant face and asked, "Master, the pressure before the appearance of the heaven and earth Tao fruit. Why do I feel like I've encountered it before?" Upon her words, the others looked at an Xian in surprise. Had she also met a profound yuan-free immortal? Guan glanced at an Xian, his eyes showing a touch of satisfaction. He casually answered, "Indeed you have. Her name is Zhu Shi, who is also the Saint Heaven reincarnation." Saint Heaven reincarnation? Celestial demon child's eyes lit up with excitement as she asked, "Is it the Lord of the Holy Court?" Hearing Guan affirm with a everyone grew even more excited, and began to discuss the legend of Saint Heaven. Guan said no more, vanishing into thin air, leaving the rest of the experience for them to feel for themselves. As the heaven and earth Tao fruit emerged, all sects across the world were alarmed, and one great cultivator after another flew towards the heaven and earth Tao fruit. Even Liya rode the 9 extreme sacred heart sword there. From afar he looked at the heaven and earth Tao fruit, incapable of reflecting the whole fruit in his pupils, while divine exotic immortal spirit stood on his shoulder, equally showing a face of disbelief. "What is that?" Divine exotic immortal spirit asked with a trembling voice, witnessing the heaven and earth Tao fruit, and instinctively feeling fear. The enormity of the heaven and earth Tao fruit shook all living beings' sight, and in the face of such creation, beings only felt reverence, not daring any disrespect. Liya also felt the pressure, and his flying speed began to slow. Reason told him that this was not something he could snatch, but another voice in his heart urged him to seize this supreme opportunity. As Liya hesitated, figures swept overhead, moving with great speed. Seeing so many fearless individuals, Liya felt greater courage welling up inside him. There's strength in numbers. Maybe he would be the one to seize it. Liya gritted his teeth and immediately accelerated forward. The enormous and spectacular heaven and earth Tao fruit hovered above the land and vast sea, with Zhu Shi and Immortal Seeker standing at the top of the heaven and earth Tao fruit, looking up into the dazzling starry sky. The celestial Tao light layer that enveloped the celestial spirit great world had become thin, as if it would completely disappear at any moment. Zhu Shi changed into a golden robe that clung to her body, her long hair coiled under a phoenix crown, with 2 golden dragons on her shoulders, and a crimson halo floating behind her. At this moment, she exuded an air of supreme dominance, her brows revealing a chilling disdain for all living beings. Lord of the Holy Court, Shengtian. Profound yuan-free immortal. The Immortal Seeker looked up and sighed. There are just too many fools who can't see. As his voice fell, a huge black hole appeared in the starry sky above, and blood-red waves of air surged out, writhing like tentacles, horrifying and terrible. Who would have thought that the celestial spirit great world could give birth to the profound yuan-free immortal during the shattered era? An authoritative voice echoed between heaven and earth, so that all creatures could hear. Zhu Shi did not look up, but instead gazed down at the heaven and earth Tao fruit below. Each golden rune glowed with a light unique to it, appearing mysterious. The Immortal Seeker whispered, "The Supreme Demon Emperor from the Supreme Demon Realm has arrived. If you want to merge the heaven and earth Tao fruit, you might have to deal with him first." As his voice fell, black holes of various sizes appeared from all directions, terrible auras spilling out from them. Their converging might made heaven and earth tremble. Zhu Shi did not raise her eyes. She simply uttered one word. "Good." Boom boom. The palace trembled, and Jiang Qiong, sitting at the highest seat, furrowed her brows. Her gaze turned to the palace doors outside, where the sky was dark, lightning flashed, and thunder roared. Fierce winds ravaged the forests, and in the far distance at the edge of the sky, one could vaguely see a terrifying behemoth. Heaven and earth Tao fruit. Looking at the heaven and earth Tao fruit, Jiang Qiong felt very uneasy. She always had the feeling of facing the apocalypse, as if it was the last day of heaven and earth. At that moment, a female cultivator swiftly flew into the hall, landing before the steps, and saluted Jiang Qiong. Master, the evil demon has left. It seems to be heading towards the distant mysterious giant fruit. Should we deactivate the sect protection formation? The female cultivator asked. The mention of the mysterious giant fruit caused her voice to hesitate for a moment. Jiang Qiong glared at her and said, "You feel the malevolence of this heaven and earth. Do you think it should be deactivated?" The female cultivator replied helplessly, "Master, the resources consumed by this formation are truly immense, and continuing like this could easily drag us down. Over the years, you have not allowed us to go out and compete." Her voice trailed off with a hint of resentment. Jiang Qiong responded, "You must have seen other cultivators from sects that joined the struggle. Haven't you noticed a common trait amongst them?" The female cultivator asked in surprise, "What trait?" "They all become mad, bold, even obsessive. Once they set foot on this path, it seems they can never turn back. I'm not sure if my current decision is right, but if the disciples of Gathering Flower sect become like that, then sooner or later, the sect will perish." Jiang Qiong's words plunged the female cultivator into silence. She thought carefully about the faces of those people. They did seem off, with a crazed posture. The palace continued to tremble violently, with hot or icy winds blowing in intermittently. Just as the female cultivator was about to leave, a voice full of oppression rang out. "Shengtian, I did indeed underestimate you, but the path you've chosen will surely lead to your doom." The voice of the Supreme Demon Emperor, tinged with fear. Jiang Qiong didn't know who the voice belonged to, but she knew of Shengxian's legend. Demons rampage, and immortal gods fight amongst themselves. Even in the Nirvana realm, facing such a cataclysm, are we any different from mortals? Jiang Qiong's voice was intricate with emotion as she looked at her disciple and said somberly, "In such turbulent times, the best we mortals can do is to hide, not like moths to a flame trying to fight for something. We can't compete for such an opportunity." Search the novel Fire Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 548. The strongest in the world. The shout of the Supreme Demon Emperor made all beings realize the strength of Shengtian. Those ancient legends resurfaced in everyone's minds. Before the changing of the eras, Shengtian was the most powerful existence between heaven and earth and was the supreme ruler, the true sovereign of heaven and earth. Later on, she vanished, and many influential figures emerged in the world, causing her name to be seldom mentioned. What was Shengtian doing? Just how strong was she? Countless creatures gazed at the heaven and earth Dao fruit suspended above the ground, speculating in their hearts. Shengtian had a very positive image, and in front of such terrifying celestial phenomena, the beings who knew of her began to hope that she could save everything. Inside the Taoist field of the beginningless, Guan stayed in his own room, watching the battle. Zhu Shi was absorbing the power of the heaven and earth Dao fruit while resisting the offensive from the supreme demon realm. Facing thousands alone, displaying immense strength. That supreme demon emperor was also a profound yuan-free immortal, and even at the same realm, with a group of powerful subordinates assisting him, he was still unable to gain the upper hand over Zhu Shi. At this rate, Zhu Shi would certainly merge with the heaven and earth Dao fruit. Judging by Zhu Zai's performance, Guan felt she was now invincible in the profound yuan-free immortal realm, which was quite exaggerated since she had not only just entered the profound yuan-free immortal realm, but had also just broken through from the Taoist Zhongzhizai immortal realm. Even with the borrowed power of the immortal seeker aiding Zhu Shi, her own battle talent was also very strong. Looking across all beings in the celestial spirit great world, judging solely by battle talent, Guan felt that only and how could barely compare to Zhu Shi. Liya, Elvisian, Yang Jian, Chen Chuan, and others were far behind. With Gu An's current cultivation level, he had the confidence to make such a judgment, for all beings in the world were within his sight. "Disciple, what would you do?" Guan muttered to himself, referring to an how. under the guidance of the celestial Tao golden core. And Hao also wanted to contend for the heaven and earth Tao fruit. But even with the power of the celestial Tao golden core, he couldn't possibly be Zhu Zai's opponent. The celestial Tao golden core and the heaven and earth Tao fruit both belonged to the same person. But the Tao fruit itself was transformed from the golden core. How this being could retain both Tao fruit and golden core, or what Taoist technique they cultivated, was unknown. Could he possibly nurture two golden cores? Guan began to look forward to this being's appearance. All the current struggles were a game between the celestial spirit God and the founder of the celestial spirit great world. All beings were mere pawns. Apart from Guan, the immortal seeker was the only variable. Long Jun from the past did not count. He was no threat to the celestial spirit God. As Guan continued to deduce, the battle between the supreme demon realm and Shengtian intensified, and the world began to feel the effects, with the range getting wider and wider. As the saying goes, when immortals fight, mortals suffer. Even a hint of their unleashed pressure was enough to plunge a region into crisis. Time flew by rapidly. An Xian, celestial demon child, LV Xian, and others couldn't calm down to cultivate. They gathered together, discussing the earth-shaking battle. The screen Guan left behind was reflecting the heaven and earth Tao fruit, which was precisely the battlefield itself. SAR the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Looking at the unstoppable Zhu Xi, those who had seen her before were all marveling. They had never imagined that the once timid female disciple would have such a domineering side. It looks like the supreme demon realm can't stop her. She seems to be absorbing the power of the heaven and earth Tao fruit. Goodness, if she successfully absorbs it, will she continue to break through? This Tao fruit is heaven and earth itself. Controlling it would mean controlling the entire world. It's unimaginable. Yes, but don't forget what Master said. All of this is due to the machinations of immortal gods, who have yet to show themselves. Disciples excitedly discussed among themselves. They were amazed by Zhu Xi and the strength of the supreme demon realm. But they weren't panicked, although they didn't say it outright. Everyone felt in their hearts that Guan was the strongest. Even the blood prison great saint, who had seen the end of great heaven and earth, was calm. In his view, even if his master couldn't defeat that being capable of destroying the universe, he had the power to protect himself. As long as his master dared to continue watching the chaos, he wouldn't panic. He even suspected that his master wanted to snatch the heaven and earth Tao fruit. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. The battle for the Tao fruit continued. The supreme demon realm had already lost half of its forces, and much of the land had cracked, killing countless beings. Sea waves rolled endlessly into the distance, with many magical treasures and flying creatures following them. Various sects were migrating, and there were imperial dynasties taking their citizens to flee. But during the escape, there was both unity and shady deeds happening. Taitsong continent was far from the heaven and earth Tao fruit. Countless cultivators at the continent's edge were blocking tsunamis. There was no immediate catastrophe, but the hearts of everyone grew increasingly heavy. The longer time dragged on, the more disaster it brought to all beings. That day at noon, another boundless and mighty pressure descended. This pressure didn't make the creatures of heaven and earth feel uncomfortable, but instead brought a revitalizing sensation. That golden core has actually found an inheritor. Wait, could it be? The immortal seeker, standing on the heaven and earth Tao fruit, frowned and muttered to himself. Not far away, Zhu Xi continued to absorb the power of the heaven and earth Tao fruit. Looking upward, Zhu Xi was condensing a Dharma aspect even larger than the heaven and earth Tao fruit. With 1,000 arms, each holding different magical treasures, the Dharma aspect was ever-changing and dazzling to behold. Zhu Xi turned her head to look at him and asked, "Could it be what?" The immortal seeker had a complex look in his eyes, but simply shook his head slightly, saying nothing. Seeing that he was hiding something from her, a chill flashed in Zhu Zai's eyes, but she said no more. At this point, she had no retreat. In fact, not seeing the celestial spirit got up to this point, Zhu Xi felt something was off. The absence of the celestial spirit god meant that even if her actions were successful, they wouldn't threaten him, which was a frightening prospect. Zhu Xi looked down at the heaven and earth Tao fruit beneath her feet. her gaze attempting to pierce through the golden Tao patterns, to see through the heaven and earth Tao fruit. A dazzling bright light struck from the side, hitting Zhu Zai's face. She glanced over to see a huge sun appearing in the sky, illuminating the entire celestial spirit great world. In an instant, the whole world was enveloped in strong light. The nearby continents and oceans were stripped of color. Boom, 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 out of the massive sun surged waves of fire, forming huge golden dragons larger than mountains, breathing scorching heat. The heaven and earth Tao fruit, and how also desire it. A loud voice like thunder rang through heaven and earth, audible to all creatures. The name and how instantly embedded itself in the memory of all beings. Those who knew him were incredulous, and those who didn't felt tense. Just hearing the voice made one want to submit. Such a powerful being entering the battlefield would surely bring even greater catastrophe to heaven and earth. And how? At Supreme Sect, within the Third Medicine Valley, the aged LV Batian sat by his garden, looking up at the bright sun in the sky, mumbling to himself. His turbid eyes gradually brightened. In a trance, it seemed he saw the spirited youth from 9,000 years ago standing in front of him again. I really am old. LV Batian mumbled to himself. But you certainly aren't old yet. Where are you watching all this? Search the Novel Fire Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 549. Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable, Supreme Demon Emperor Guan appeared with the Celestial Tao Golden Core. And that magnificent celestial might made the situation in the great heaven and earth even tenser. Zhu Xi did not respond to Guan's forceful shouting. She directly controlled the Dharma aspect to strike at Guan, releasing the profound primordial aura that made the rules of heaven and earth tremble, causing the celestial vault's thunderclouds to churn and change color, with various anomalies emerging one after another. The clash between the Celestial Tao Golden Core and the heaven and earth Tao fruit affected the entire great heaven and earth. This time, there was no retreat for all beings, as the disaster was no longer centered around the heaven and earth Tao fruit spreading outwards, but instead causing the great heaven and earth to crack everywhere, with no pattern to speak of. In front of these two powerful forces, any being wishing to participate in the struggle did not even have the qualification to approach. The 7 subordinates of the silent destruction god emperor were not attracted to the heaven and earth Tao fruit. Instead, they flew towards the outer heaven. After a long time, they flew to the world gate, and in front of the seated celestial spirit god, they bowed respectfully, with a reverent attitude. One of them took out a long command token, and said carefully, "Celestial God, we wish to return to our great thousand world." The celestial spirit god did not open his eyes, but the world gate behind him began to tremble, and a strong light burst forth from within, which relieved the 7 individuals, who immediately flew into the world gate. After their figures disappeared, the world gate quickly returned to calm, and the strong light inside faded away. A mass of black chi condensed out of thin air next to the celestial spirit god, gradually forming a sinister, cold face. Celestial God, in this battle, my supreme demon realm has suffered heavy losses. Why have you not taken action yet? The mysterious face asked, its tone perplexed. The celestial spirit god slowly opened his eyes, which were brighter than the sun and the moon, and also demonstrated celestial might. Seeing him open his eyes, the aura of the mysterious face visibly weakened. I have my own certainty. What you seek is for the supreme demon realm, to become an independent great heaven and earth. Even if these demons die out, it doesn't matter. The celestial spirit god's tone was categorically strong-willed, causing the mysterious face to frown. The celestial spirit god's gaze looked towards the celestial spirit great world, his eyes indifferent, yet seeming to be anticipating something. May I ask, celestial god, now that the celestial Tao destiny has dissipated, why don't you simply destroy the celestial spirit great world? Your goal couldn't possibly be that heaven and earth Tao fruit. The mysterious face continued to ask, growing uneasy as the situation progressed. He couldn't quite pinpoint the source of his unease. He understood the celestial spirit god. This celestial god disdained deception, and would fulfill promises he made. But he didn't understand what the celestial spirit god was thinking. Do you know who created the celestial spirit great world? The celestial spirit god asked, his voice devoid of any emotion. The mysterious face answered, I only know of such a creator, unaware of their identity and name. He is the celestial spirit immortal venerable, surpassing the free immortal, condensing the golden immortal Tao fruit. The celestial court's immortal official recruited him, offering him the celestial Tao immortal position, life as long as heavenly Tao. The celestial spirit god explained. He refused. Thus he met such a fate, and his great thousand world is also not blessed by the heavenly Tao. The mysterious face went silent, pondering the celestial spirit god's intent. Was it a warning? Or was it touting the dominance of the celestial court? The celestial spirit god turned his head towards the mysterious face, his gaze making the mysterious face's color unnaturally change. Supreme Demon Emperor, you have undergone reincarnation tens of thousands of times, always one step shy of the golden immortal Tao fruit. The shortfall lies in your understanding of the world. Once you create a great world, you will naturally break through. But you must always remember who created everything and who set the order. When the heavenly Tao wishes you to do something, going against the heavenly Tao will mark the beginning of your endless calamity. The tone of the celestial spirit god made the one called Supreme Demon Emperor's expression fluctuate. Meanwhile, the great battle in the human world was still ongoing. Guan, who was manipulating the celestial Tao golden core, had white hair and skin that even started to show bloodstains. Even so, he was still resolutely staring at Zhu Xi. Zhu Xi glanced at him, her eyes revealing a disdainful sneer. She didn't understand what and how was fighting for, but the heaven and earth Tao fruit was a trap in itself. Countless beings went mad for it, reckless with their own lives. The immortal seeker looked at and how with a peculiar gaze, occasionally glancing back at Zhu Xi. Suddenly, Zhu Xi spoke up. It seems we both consider ourselves the savior, but I am stronger. If I'm not mistaken, what we're facing is not just the celestial spirit god, but also the existence who created the celestial spirit great world. Your disciple as well. As her words ended, Zhu Zai's eyes turned cold as she looked toward the immortal seeker. The immortal seeker had sought her out under the pretext of helping his disciple seek revenge. Now that his disciple was not entirely dead, their trust was naturally crumbling. Search * the Nell Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The immortal seeker sighed. I failed to see through him. I didn't expect him to hide so deeply. However, what comes next is a good thing for you. You won't have to face the celestial spirit god alone. Zhu Xi lifted her right hand, and the thousand-handed Dharma aspect above her changed gestures, the various magical treasures blazing with dazzling light. And how, suspended in front of the celestial Tao golden core, suddenly had his pupils constrict. The world in front of him changed abruptly, and he found himself in a barren land with no bounds. There was no sky above, only a brilliant starscape, and Zhu Zai's Dharma aspect loomed even larger above him, looking down. And Hao frowned. Behind him, more waves of fire surged from the celestial Tao golden core, quickly pulling him into it. One of us will be possessed by him, and even though you are also a disciple of Master, his favorite disciple, I won't give up on myself. Zhu Zai's voice echoed beneath the starry void, filled with an oppressive force. Within the celestial Tao golden core, an eye appeared, occupying the entirety of it, bearing a resemblance to An Hao's eyes, yet different. Meanwhile, in reality, the celestial Tao golden core collided with Zhu Zai's Dharma aspect, scattering it before landing on the heaven and earth Tao fruit, while Zhu Xi and the immortal seeker had vanished without a trace. From a cosmic perspective, the celestial spirit great world burst into a wave of shock force, spreading extravagantly through the universe. The layers of celestial Tao light completely dissipated, and the beings fleeing to outer heaven were eradicated by the shock, utterly annihilated. The evil demons assaulting the heaven and earth Tao fruit from the supreme demon realm were wiped out. In contrast, the cultivators from the human world remained unharmed. Elsewhere, in front of the world gate, the celestial spirit god slowly rose to his feet. Just as the Supreme Demon Emperor was about to speak, he sharply turned his head, showing a look of shock. This aura. How is it possible? Is he really still alive? Exclaimed the Supreme Demon Emperor. The celestial spirit god raised his right hand, and a giant axe appeared in his grip, spiraling with celestial Tao flame. It was the white flame that symbolized absolute order. I have been looking forward to this battle for a long time, forgetting how many years it has been. The voice of the celestial spirit god resounded, his tone becoming excited for the first time, tinged with a trace of fervor. Far away in the Taoist field of the beginningless, Guan suddenly sat up, his expression peculiar, and his eyes filled with surprise. How are he actually? Guan noticed that Anhao's physical body had merged with the heaven and earth Tao fruit, even evolving into a different aura. It felt like the awakening of a past life, yet different. Anhao was undoubtedly connected to the founder of the celestial spirit great world, but likely not a reincarnation. While surprised by Anhao's transformation, the strength of the celestial spirit god was something neither Anhao nor the heaven and earth Tao fruit could contend with. It would ultimately be up to him to make a move. Good. Guan stood up and began to limber up inside the room, forming a stark contrast with the celestial spirit god before the world gate. He was eager to try. The other, invincible to the world. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 550. The Treasures of the Immortal Palace. The collision of the forces between the heaven and earth Tao fruit and the celestial Tao golden core not only made the world tremble, but also affected the other great heaven and earths within the universe, turning the disaster into a cosmic calamity. The Tao mist in the silent extinction domain surged violently, with pieces of nebulae dispersing and new ones being born. The cosmic beasts hidden in darkness began to flee in all directions, presenting a chaotic scene in the vast, boundless universe. At Supreme Sect, on the mountains at the edge of the Third Medicine Valley, Longqing, Longjun, and Candlestar stood side by side, looking towards the bright light on the horizon, their faces barely concealing their shock. Candlestar couldn't help but look at Longjun and asked, "Senior, can you see through all this?" He could feel a powerful presence awakening in the distance, its momentum increasing at an unimaginable pace. "I cannot see through it either. What is happening now is completely different from the future I foresaw," Longjun replied, his eyes complex. Longqing caught a glimpse of Longjun's expression with his peripheral vision, and sensed the unrest and confusion of this elder. This was the first time he had seen such an expression on his ancestor's face. He looked back towards the horizon, his emotions mixed. Brother Anhao, Zhu Shi. Longqing murmured these two names in his heart. Both were fellow disciples, and although Zhu Shi was Saint Heaven reincarnated, they had this connection. How could he not be affected? Wuxia world. Sight he realized he truly wasn't the master's most favored disciple. Anhao and Zhu Shi had already been able to dominate the trends of heaven and earth, while he could only hide within Medicine Valley to cultivate his divine skills, which were profound and unfathomable, and how much longer it would take to master them was unknown. All living beings were enveloped by the bright light, and everything lost its color. Even mortal spirits could feel the oppressive force swiftly strengthening, but miraculously, this didn't extinguish the mortal spirits. From the view of the universe, at the center of the celestial spirit great world, there was a mass of strong light, and this light was rising. Within the strong light, two figures were battling, Zhu Shi and Anhao. Zhu Zai's Dharma aspect shrank to 10,000 zhang tall, completely suppressing Anhao, who had turned into a bloodied figure, his physical body occasionally exploding but quickly coalescing again. Both were utilizing the power of heaven and earth, but Zhu Zai's cultivation level was far superior to Anhao's, the gap in strength vast. "You're no match for me, give up." Zhu Shi looked down upon Anhao, her cold voice echoing, her Dharma aspect not ceasing its spell casting. Anhao didn't utter a word, clenching his teeth and persevering, his blood-streaked white hair whipping about as if he were a mad demon. Patterns of gold slowly appeared on his chest, and soon an eye emerged. It was the mysterious giant eye from within the celestial Tao golden core. Seeing this eye, Zhu Shi frowned. At that moment, Countless light stars burst forth from behind Zhu Xi, hurtling towards Anhao at high speed, and her expression drastically changed. She felt her own power being siphoned away, headed towards Anhao. The divine skills taught by the immortal seeker could prevent her from being devoured by the heaven and earth Tao fruit, but they could not stop the power of the heaven and earth Tao fruit from leaving. What's going on? Zhu Xi furrowed her brows tightly, staring intently at Anhao. As the power of the heaven and earth Tao fruit surged into Anhao's body, he rapidly transformed into a blood silkworm, his curled-up body faintly visible. It wasn't just the power of the heaven and earth Tao fruit, but also the power of the celestial Tao golden core no longer lent to Anhao, but merging inside him in an inexplicable manner. Anhao was transforming into someone else. Meanwhile, Guan, exercising his muscles in secret, was startled by Anhao's fate turning murky, making him hesitant about whether to make a move prematurely. But if he struck prematurely, the master of the great world would still leave behind a hidden danger. If the will of the master of the celestial spirit great world remained and could observe all creatures, that posed a risk for Guan as well. He couldn't let anyone know of his ability to steal lifespans. So he would wait. It was only fair that Anhao should pay a price for his choices, since no one had forced him on this path. Guan saw the celestial spirit god move, holding that familiar massive axe and walking towards the celestial spirit great world. Behind him followed a mass of demonic chi, whose essence was the same as the evil demons of the supreme demon realm, especially similar to that of the supreme demon emperor. With just one glance, Guan saw through its cause and effect. The supreme demon emperor, the ancient being who established the supreme demon realm. The supreme demon emperor was merely his disciple, managing the supreme demon realm on his behalf while he had always hidden in the shadows, unknown to anyone in the supreme demon realm, except for the supreme demon emperor. Feeling something, the supreme demon emperor suddenly stopped. The celestial spirit god paid no mind and continued forward, his eyes only on the celestial spirit immortal venerable. He didn't walk fast, still waiting for the celestial spirit immortal venerable to revive. Before long, having lost the power of the heaven and earth Tao fruit, Zhu Zai's cultivation level fell sharply, suddenly dropping to the Taoist Zongzizai immortal realm. She couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood, her complexion instantly turning pallid. She looked ahead, and the blood silkworm transformed by Anhao had grown over 100,000 zhang tall. His figure had also become enormous, still curling up. A deep breathing sound came from inside the blood silkworm, as if the oldest demon god was about to awaken. "Are you still not leaving?" The voice of the immortal seeker entered Zhu Zai's ears. She turned her head to see the immortal seeker appearing beside her. His body emitted a faint silver light, his robe fluttering slightly, full of immortal energy. Zhu Xi retorted, "Leave? Where do I go? To the world gate?" The immortal seeker sighed. "I underestimated him. Perhaps I was also calculated by him. I will help you leave. Your talent should not be buried here." Just as Zhu Xi was about to continue mocking, the immortal seeker's soul emerged from his body and he turned, swinging his hand towards her. His palm was incredibly fast, so fast that even Zhu Xi in the Taoist Zongzizai immortal realm couldn't react in time. Struck by the palm wind from afar, Zhu Zai's eyes widened as she fell backward, a silver-white light gate appearing behind her. She fell straight into it, and the light gate abruptly vanished. The flesh of the immortal seeker perished, leaving only his soul floating in the void, his face showing a weary expression. He turned to look at the massive blood silkworm, his gaze complex. "My disciple, why must you also hide from your master? Could it really have been your fault back then?" The immortal seeker muttered to himself. "Celestial spirit immortal venerable, you established the celestial spirit great world, and were conferred the celestial Tao immortal position by the celestial court, yet you refused and even harmed immortal officials, sacrificing all living beings. Now do you still want to commit crimes?" The voice of the celestial spirit god came from the depths of the universe and reached the ears of all beings in the universe. The name celestial spirit immortal venerable made all beings remember. Establish the celestial spirit great world? Sacrifice all living beings? The information in these words struck fear into all beings. Then another voice arose. "What about you, celestial spirit god? Without my establishment of the great thousand world, where would your godly position come from? You force me to sacrifice all living beings. You keep the great thousand world in its shattered state, unable to be repaired by the heavenly Tao. Your actions have already violated the celestial rules. What are you pursuing? Do you think I don't know? Celestial spirit, immortal venerable. His voice was similar to an house, but more imposing. Listening to their dialogue, the immortal seeker furrowed his brow tightly, seeming to think of something incredible. He looked up at the giant blood silkworm and couldn't help but say, "Back when you followed me to the immortal palace, could you really have stolen that ultimate treasure?" The giant blood silkworm did not make another sound, and the celestial spirit god did not continue the conversation. Though the dialogue had ended, the vast oppressive force of the celestial spirit god was drawing near. Inside the house, Guan, listening to the conversation of the two, grew curious. What was the relationship between the celestial spirit god and celestial spirit immortal venerable? And what were the treasures they mentioned? Boom! Accompanied by a heaven-shattering loud noise, the universe trembled as the giant blood silkworm exploded. Blood winds raged in various directions of the universe. A towering figure appeared. It was an Hao, but more robust than before. His upper body bare, an eye growing on his chest, a black dragon wrapped around his waist. Vicious black chi surged below, encircling him, his white hair wildly flying. That face, identical to an Hao's, showed no emotion. He was an Hao, and he was also the celestial spirit immortal venerable. Reflected in his eyes was the approaching figure of the celestial spirit god. The two, separated across the universe, locked in a destined conflict with only each other in their sight. "Master, you shouldn't have come. Go back, pretend you know nothing of this. Whether it's him or me, whether alive or dead, do not pursue it further." The voice of the celestial spirit immortal venerable rang out again, seemingly unafraid of others hearing, his voice still resonant. Chapter 551. Guan versus the celestial spirit god. Hearing the words of the celestial spirit immortal venerable, the immortal seeker's expression turned ugly, anger apparent in his eyes. "Why have you chosen to be born at this time?" The immortal seeker looked up at the figure of the celestial spirit immortal venerable and asked, suppressing his rage, knowing now was not the time for petty calculations. The celestial spirit immortal venerable did not answer, but instead turned to gaze toward the celestial spirit great world. His eyes filled with profound meaning. At the same time, a brilliant light appeared from the depths of the universe. It was the figure of the celestial spirit god holding the celestial Tao divine axe, stepping on the Tao rules. Every step he took, ripples spread throughout the cosmic space. Under his steps, the universe seemed ephemeral, ready to vanish at any moment. The celestial spirit immortal venerable turned back, refocusing his gaze on the celestial spirit god. He raised his right hand, palm facing upwards, and gold flames spontaneously appeared and rapidly coalesced into a great cauldron, growing larger continuously until it dwarfed his own form. Above the cauldron, a vortex with stars scattered within, breathtakingly beautiful, resembling the most mystical secret realm, brimming with allure. The moment the cauldron appeared, all beings felt as if their strength was being siphoned away. Countless fell paralyzed to the ground. Those flying cultivators and demons crashing into oceans and between mountains. All at once, the celestial spirit great world fell silent. Inside the palace, Jiang Qiong lay weak on the staircase, looking toward the outside of the grand doors, her face revealing a look of despair. Wuxia world. Sight Wuxia world. Sight. She felt her mana and chi power being drawn out in an instant, even her divine sense disappearing without a trace. Her Tao practice accumulated over nearly 10,000 years. How could this be? She couldn't fathom what she was experiencing, and what kind of being was behind this. Suddenly, her peripheral vision caught another pair of feet beside her. Her pupils dilated sharply as she was about to look up. A hand grasped her forearm. Endless mana poured into her, revitalizing her strength rapidly. Feeling this mana, Jiang Qiong didn't need to see the person to instantly let her guard down. She looked up with a smile on her face. "It really is you," Jiang Qiong said softly, her expression somewhat infatuated. Guan pulled her to her feet and asked with a smile, "Do you know why your mana disappeared?" Jiang Qiong leaned on him. Why? Because the mana you cultivated and you yourself are creatures of great heaven and earth. For great heaven and earth to reclaim everything from you. It's as easy as turning over one's hand. Guan said with a helpless smile, feeling her body against his. At such a time, this guy was still making his moves. Hearing this, Jiang Qiong frowned, straightened up and asked, Great heaven and earth? Is great heaven and earth punishing us now? What did we do wrong? That's right, you did nothing wrong. But great heaven and earth is not what you think it is. It's actually a person, or rather a cultivator whose emotions cannot be swayed by those he created, like you. Gu An's answer shocked Jiang Qiong. Her beautiful eyes widened, speechless. Because the words came from Guan, she believed them. And because she believed, her perception was overthrown. She felt the world was preposterous. While Guan was explaining the truth about great heaven and earth to Jiang Qiong, the celestial spirit god had already arrived before the celestial spirit immortal venerable, no longer smaller in stature than the celestial spirit immortal venerable. Under the presence of the two mighty beings, the celestial spirit great world seemed nothing more than a stepping stone, no longer holding the grandeur and magnificence of great heaven and earth. The celestial spirit god, still holding the celestial Tao divine axe and emitting a strong heavenly light, dazzling to the extreme, looked at the great cauldron in the hands of the celestial spirit immortal venerable and spoke. Purple Chi creation cauldron, being with you has done it a disservice. Today, I hope you will let it show its true strength. The celestial spirit immortal venerable fixated on the celestial spirit god. You have grown stronger. The celestial spirit god lifted the celestial Tao divine axe, pointing at him. After I execute you and destroy your great thousand world, I will shed the identity of the celestial spirit, and ascend to an even higher rank among the immortal gods. Had you not ambushed me back then, the outcome would still be in question. As the celestial spirit immortal venerable's voice fell, the purple Chi creation cauldron burst forth with a vast Chi sea. The silvery stellar sea suddenly expanded, enveloping the entire universe. The aura of the celestial spirit immortal venerable surged relentlessly. He was absorbing the power of all things in the universe, including the powers of those great worlds. The celestial spirit god still did not make a move. The soul of the immortal seeker floated in the distance, his gaze locked on the celestial spirit god. He could tell that the celestial spirit god had utter contempt for the celestial spirit immortal venerable. Has he reached a higher realm? The immortal seeker frowned, feeling uneasy. It was not just him. Even the celestial spirit immortal venerable could feel the disdain from the celestial spirit god. At that moment, within the celestial spirit immortal venerable, inside a dark space, and Hao stood beside the celestial spirit immortal venerable, both gazing ahead. 100 yards away, a screen of light suspended, showing the figure of the celestial spirit god. Looking at the immovable celestial spirit god, the disheveled and Hao felt uneasy. He turned to the celestial spirit immortal venerable and asked, Are you confident? The celestial spirit immortal venerable, dressed in a white robe, looked very similar to an Hao, though with a more weathered face. I can only do my best, and besides, I have no other choice, do I? The celestial spirit immortal venerable replied, his answer darkening in Hao's expression. The celestial spirit immortal venerable turned to Hao with a smile. Don't worry too much. With my abilities, even if I cannot defeat him, helping you to escape to safety is hardly a difficult task. And Hao was not pleased. He asked, Why do you treat me this way? He had a suspicion in his heart but dared not voice it. You guessed right, but also not quite. You can indeed be considered my child, but not in the way you understand birth. You were conceived from my own Tao, and it was my choice to let you be born where you were. As long as you are within my great thousand world, I could even keep you immortal. I have always been watching over you. The celestial spirit immortal venerable continued. Chapter 551. Guan versus the celestial spirit god. _2 And Hao didn't feel shocked. In the thousands of years he had spent comprehending the celestial Tao golden core, he had long sensed that his destiny pattern was extraordinary, which is why he could feel his own mission. He stared at the celestial spirit immortal venerable and asked, The change of era, was it your active choice, Or was it the choice of the heavenly Tao? If there were no change of era, the celestial Tao light layer weakening, how would the celestial spirit God dare to make a move? In the process of his comprehension of the heavenly Tao, he could feel the suppression of the so-called immortal gods by the heavenly Tao. That's right, it was my active choice, replied the celestial spirit immortal venerable, his gaze fixed on the celestial spirit God in the light screen. And how immediately became anxious and asked, "Why? You know I need time to grow. Given time, I would surely be able to help you eradicate the celestial spirit God and aid in your resurrection." He had absolute confidence in his talent. The celestial spirit immortal venerable turned to look at him, his eyes complex, and said, "Child, you truly are my most perfect creation. You make me prouder than the entire great thousand world. But it's not that I don't give you time. It's because there are existences in the world that are even more terrifying than the celestial spirit God." What existences? And Hao frowned and asked. Today, the number of powerful beings ravaging the celestial spirit great world were countless, and many names flashed through his mind. At that moment, in reality, the celestial spirit immortal venerable's right hand raised, and the purple chi creation cauldron took flight, spinning, the mouth of the cauldron facing the celestial spirit God. Boom! A majestic force that made the entire universe tremble erupted from the cauldron mouth, and a vast silver-blue chi burst forth, grand and unstoppable, illuminating the celestial vault of the celestial spirit great world. Wuxia world. Sight countless creatures lying on the ground looked up to see the celestial vault disappear. They saw a silver-blue giant river, within which countless stars twinkled. The eyes of all beings were filled with dots of silver-blue light. They saw the figures of the celestial spirit God and the celestial spirit immortal venerable, resembling two founding gods, making all creatures feel their own insignificance. Even those in the immortal Tao realm felt nothing but infinite reverence in their hearts at this moment. The divine power of the purple chi creation cauldron fell onto the body of the celestial spirit God, blocked by a layer of white light. How domineering was this silver river, capable of destroying everything. The space it passed through was ripped apart into dark regions, yet even such a powerful force could not shake the figure of the celestial spirit God. "Is this all you can do?" The voice of the celestial spirit God sounded, with a hint of disappointment. Inside the dark space, and Hao witnessed this scene, his brows deeply furrowed. "As for what existence, I cannot tell you. Now our opponent is him, the celestial spirit God, the real immortal God." The celestial spirit immortal venerable looked ahead as he spoke, his expression returning to indifference. As his voice fell, the purple chi creation cauldron trembled, and from within that silver river emerged numerous silver figures. They swiftly attacked the celestial spirit God, and in the blink of an eye, the number of silver figures reached an exaggerated amount. They quickly surrounded the celestial spirit God, the disparity in their figures immense, like dust surrounding Mount Tai, yet somehow the dust was plentiful enough to completely surround it. Boom! A terrifying axe chi erupted, dispersing millions of silver figures, chopping through the silver river, striking the purple chi creation cauldron. And the mightily purple chi creation cauldron was directly sent flying. The purple chi creation cauldron disappeared into the depths of the universe, and all was once again silent. With just one move, the celestial spirit God had defeated the divine skills of the celestial spirit immortal venerable, even sending his treasure flying. The celestial spirit God maintained the posture of swinging his axe, his right arm turning slightly, swinging his axe again. The celestial spirit immortal venerable immediately raised his palm to defend, a powerful mana bursting forth containing the strength of thousands of great power of heaven and earth, wishing to contend against the celestial spirit God. Boom! A deafening roar resounded in the ears of all beings, and they faintly heard something like the sound of shattering crystal. Facing the attack of the celestial spirit God, the great magical power of the celestial spirit immortal venerable could not hold on, and was directly dispersed. His flesh bore densely packed wounds, gruesomely ghastly, heaven balancing golden immortal. The immortal seeker floating in the void looked extremely ugly as he struggled to utter these 4 words. The heavily injured celestial spirit immortal venerable furrowed his brows, his gaze towards the celestial spirit God complex. Inside the dark space, the celestial spirit immortal venerable took a deep breath. And Hao's spirit was taut. He hadn't anticipated the disparity between the celestial spirit immortal venerable and the celestial spirit god to be so great. Yuan Hao asked cautiously. He didn't know how to show his concern, because right then, there was nothing he could do. It seems I cannot stop him. I will send you away. Once the celestial spirit great world is extinguished, you and I will have no more karma. Live well for me and witness an even vaster heaven and earth. The celestial spirit immortal venerable took a deep breath and spoke somberly. Upon hearing this, and Hao immediately became anxious. He was about to speak when the voice of the celestial spirit god resonated through the dark space. Humph. Trying to escape? Do you really think it's like the old days? Before the words even fell, the celestial spirit god in the light screen swung his axe again. This axe struck not only the immense body of the celestial spirit immortal venerable, but also shattered the light screen and the dark space. Intense light poured in, enveloping Hao and the celestial spirit immortal venerable. And Hao was horrified to find himself suppressed by an incredibly strong force, completely unable to move. He could only glance towards the celestial spirit immortal venerable. However, what made him even more desperate was the look of panic that appeared on the face of the celestial spirit immortal venerable. What realm are you exactly? The celestial spirit immortal venerable bit out, equally unable to move. He knew that the celestial spirit god was strong, but he hadn't expected the gap to be so huge. Faced with the celestial spirit god, he had no power to resist. In the midst of the blinding light, the celestial spirit god, just like before, stepped forward, seemingly symbolizing a divine power of destruction, unstoppable. Heaven-balancing golden immortal mid-stage. The voice of the celestial spirit god echoed through the space that was breaking apart, causing the celestial spirit immortal venerable to lose his composure. Chapter 551. Guan versus the celestial spirit god. _3 Even after creating the celestial spirit great world, the celestial spirit immortal venerable had barely reached the innate golden immortal realm, and the heaven-balancing golden immortal seemed infinitely distant to him, almost an extravagant wish. However, the celestial spirit god had attained it, even surpassing the early stage. In a daze, the celestial spirit immortal venerable thought back to when his master had taken him to the immortal palace, and he saw the celestial spirit god. At that time, the celestial spirit god was merely his junior, who had appeared in the immortal palace because the master of the immortal palace had taken notice of his talent. Rising from the mortal world, to become the heaven-encompassing free immortal, the celestial spirit immortal venerable didn't care about this. In his eyes, even if the talent of the celestial spirit god was extraordinary, it would never surpass his own. In the end, he died at the hands of the celestial spirit god. And now, the celestial spirit god had far surpassed him. Throughout the long years of death, the celestial spirit immortal venerable could sense the presence of the celestial spirit god. The celestial spirit god had never left. Which means the celestial spirit god had achieved the heaven-balancing golden immortal by meditating and attaining enlightenment on his own. Thinking of this, the celestial spirit immortal venerable's pride was completely shattered. He totally lost his spirit. Senior. Senior. Faint voices reached the celestial spirit immortal venerable's ears, but they could not awaken his fighting spirit. Father. Suddenly, the celestial spirit immortal venerable felt a jolt like thunder awakening him. He instinctively turned his head and saw Hao looking at him, his face fierce. Father. Since you are my father, you cannot just surrender. Even if you die, you must die fighting. Hao gritted his teeth and roared, struggling to speak as he was unable to move. Sir, the novel Fire. Net ** website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. He could accept defeat, he could accept death, but he could not accept the celestial spirit immortal venerable losing confidence. Ever since his parents died in his childhood, he too had fantasized about them still being alive. Facing a demon beast back then, his father was just a mortal who, in order to protect him, fearlessly drew the beast away. It was his father's example that gave him the courage to fight to the death to protect an Xian from the same village. Later he met Guan, the most important mentor of his life, whose strength and fearlessness guided him. The fear of the celestial spirit immortal venerable made Enhao angry. He would not allow the celestial spirit immortal venerable to display such loss of composure. What fear is there in death? Touched by Enhao's gaze, the celestial spirit immortal venerable took a deep breath and looked back at the celestial spirit god with a determined expression. He struggled to raise his right hand, facing the aura of the heaven-balancing golden immortal, his hand shaking uncontrollably, not from fear, but from being unable to bear the pressure. Even in death, I must protect him. The celestial spirit immortal venerable bit his teeth, thinking thus in his heart. Suddenly, the celestial spirit god appeared abruptly in front of the two, raising the celestial Tao divine axe high, ready to strike at Enhao. He intended to execute Enhao right in front of the celestial spirit immortal venerable. The pupils of the celestial spirit immortal venerable shrank. Time seemed to freeze, and he felt so slow. Although Enhao was right beside him, his hand just couldn't reach him. Enhao's face was illuminated by a bright light. He remained fierce, his eyes filled with towering rage, staring fixedly at the celestial spirit god. He was ready to face death, but he did not wish to die without dignity. Boom! Darkness fell before Enhao's eyes, and then a wild wind arose. The pressure that bound him suddenly vanished, but another indescribable force enveloped him, forcing him to close his eyes. Huh! The surprised voice of the celestial spirit god rang out, startling Enhao into hurriedly opening his eyes. When he saw the figure before him, his eyes widened, and his body trembled. Between the celestial spirit god and Enhao, a figure appeared, blocking the celestial Tao divine axe in the hands of the celestial spirit god. The divine axe was suspended above the head of this person, unable to fall, the blade about 10 centimeters from their forehead, but it was these 10 centimeters that saved Enhao's life. The celestial spirit immortal venerable also felt the binds on himself disappear, and turned to look at the figure that had appeared. His brows furrowed tightly, his eyes filled with fear. "Master!" Enhao exclaimed excitedly. That person was none other than Guan. Guan, dressed in black, stood in front of Enhao, his robe fluttering. The Cyan Hong sword hung at his waist, his right hand still resting on the hilt, as he calmly stared down the celestial spirit god. As their four eyes met, the celestial spirit god's gaze held a scrutinizing hint. While Guan was as peaceful as still water, Guan had imagined countless times standing in confrontation with the celestial spirit god. Now that the moment had truly arrived, his heart settled into an unprecedented calm. At that moment, facing the celestial spirit god was not just Guan. There was also the extremity Yang Xian and the Black Profound Emperor. Search the novel Fire Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 552. Celestial I Dao Skill. One sword slays God, Celestial Spirit God. Middle stage of Hengtian Golden Immortal Realm 0/0/0. Guan looked at the lifespan detection prompt before him, feeling puzzled. The fact that information could be detected indicated that this celestial spirit god was indeed in real flesh. A situation where all values were 0 made him think of the divine exotic ghost king. Was this so-called immortality dependent on sacrificing one's own lifespan to some power? Who are you? The celestial spirit god's voice echoed in the fragmented dark space, his posture poised with the axe raised. Guan stood before him, gazing calmly and said, "As an immortal god, yet you seek to annihilate all beings in the great world. I really want to know, is this your own principle of action, or the will of the celestial court?" In his past life while he was still on Earth City, he had heard of the myths of the celestial court, with both positive and negative aspects. The status of the celestial court in mythology was undeniably recognized by the Huaxia people. This life, whenever he heard of the celestial court, his feelings were complex, joyful yet anxious. He was joyful that the name of the celestial court could reach the earth where he came from. Was there hope for him to return? Anxious because, if the celestial court truly existed, would his writings of Journey to the West and the investiture of the gods alarm the celestial court? These emotions had been smoothed out as time passed. The celestial spirit god looked at Guan and asked, "Is it important?" "Very important." The answer made the celestial spirit god fall silent for a moment. The celestial spirit god solemnly said, "The heavenly Tao has its celestial rules. Celestial gods have their own choices." This response slightly changed Guan's view of him. By this point, that the celestial spirit god could maintain the image of the celestial court was enough to prove his loyalty to it. And it also indicated that his attitude towards the celestial spirit great world stemmed from personal feelings. A force more powerful than the celestial spirit god erupted, repelling him, and the collapsing dark space shattered as well, transporting them back into the cosmos. Tao protecting divine essence. The powerful divine power dispersed the celestial Tao divine light, surrounding the celestial spirit god, revealing his true form. He was dressed in heavy silver armor, his helmet adorned with a silver dragon, his breastplate resembled a qilin, shoulder pads with phoenixes spreading their wings, and a red belt emanating pieces of world power. In his hand, the celestial Tao divine axe contained vast heavenly power, blazing and imposing. An astonished expression appeared on the stern face of the celestial spirit god. Just one move, and he felt that the other's cultivation level was not weaker than his own. With such Tao practice, why intervene in the calamity of the great world? The celestial spirit god stared intently at Guan, and asked in a deep voice. He could feel boundless way of cause and effect enveloping the cosmos, and there was no escape for him. Even the connection to the heavenly Tao was severed. The opponent was exceedingly adept in the way of cause and effect. Guan raised his right hand. The celestial star sword appeared in his grasp, and the blade wrapped itself in dazzling sword light, intensely bright. And Hao looked at Guan holding the sword, his emotions surging, feeling as if his blood was boiling, his face turning bright red. The celestial spirit immortal venerable looked at Guan with a complex look, especially noticing in Hao's expression, and felt even more mixed emotions. At this moment, the beings within the celestial spirit great world could not see the confrontation outside. They could only see the cosmic starry sky, and the whole world silenced because of it. The beings were very nervous, unclear about what was to come. On a dilapidated island, Leah lay on the cliff, struggling to look up. The divine exotic immortal spirit appeared on his shoulder, excitedly looking towards the universe. Leah could feel its excitement and immediately guessed the reason. His expression turned complex, but it was as though a burden had been lifted from his heart. Indeed, it still depends on you. You are the true protector of this world, unparalleled. Leah gazed at the cosmic starry sky. Thinking thus, his eyes gradually filled with admiration. Just as this thought occurred, a sword light burst through the cosmic starry sky, illuminating the heavens and earth, making Leah instinctively close his eyes. In the cosmic void, the celestial spirit god froze in place, the darkness behind him cleaved in two by a streak of sword light. Still gripping the celestial Tao divine axe, trembling all over, he fixated on Guan ahead, while Guan maintained the sword-swinging posture. The body of the celestial spirit god developed cracks, divine blood seeping out, his condition greatly resembling in Hao's. So fast, the celestial spirit immortal venerable stared at Guan, his expression grave. He hadn't seen clearly how Guan had swung his sword, and Hao's sense of it wasn't as profound, but he could tell that his master had suppressed the celestial spirit god's momentum, which excited him. The celestial spirit god's gaze sharpened, suddenly leaping up. Nearly instantly he burst forth with an even stronger aura, a vast sea of light appearing above him in the universe, and the celestial spirit god plunged into it, vanishing from sight. Soon after, within the light sea, a massive eye appeared. As this colossal eye opened, eyes of all sizes appeared from every direction in the universe, densely surrounding Guan and the two others, all these eyes fixated on them. Far away, the immortal seeker witnessed this scene, his expression changing once again. Celestial Eye Tao skill, he actually mastered such a great divine power. The immortal seeker was no longer startled for the first time by the celestial spirit god. He hadn't expected that he was still underestimating the celestial spirit god. His gaze unintentionally switched to Guan. For some reason he could not see Guan's true face, indicating that the other party was using some powerful method to isolate his senses. However, looking at Guan's figure, it felt familiar, as if he had met him before. But no matter how much he thought, he just couldn't remember. He didn't think he had a poor memory, rather, the other had employed the power of cause and effect. The celestial spirit god had astonished him. And this suddenly appearing mysterious existence also filled him with curiosity and awe. All these years, in the great thousand world, you are the first one to force me to exert my full strength. Those who defy the heavenly Tao should be reduced to ashes and smoke. The voice of the celestial spirit god echoed, authoritative and domineering. In an instant, countless celestial eyes burst open in the starry sky, their pupils emanating multicolored lights. Almost instantly, Guan's mana enveloped celestial spirit immortal venerable, and the celestial spirit great world below. The universe began to twist violently, distant meteors ignited into towering flames, while others were frozen solid. The celestial Tao skill can invoke the power of the heavenly Tao, allowing the 3,000 great Tao to aid him. This skill could destroy the great thousand world. The face of the celestial spirit immortal venerable was solemn as he spoke. And saw streams of nebulous starry seas appear in the distance, ravaging the cosmic void. Everything before him seemed chaotic, and even made him feel dizzy. An invisible force was invading him, an eerie sensation he had never experienced before. The celestial spirit immortal venerable looked at Guan and said, once the celestial Tao skill is employed, you are essentially making enemies with the 3,000 great Tao. You cannot. He hadn't finished speaking when Guan suddenly swung his sword, and a silver-blue sword shadow appeared out of nowhere, sweeping across the dazzling, illusionary universe. In front of this sword shadow, meteors, heaven and earth, star clouds, and sun and moon all seemed insignificant. With one slash, thousands of celestial eyes were completely extinguished. Above, the sea of celestial light was also slashed away, revealing the figure of the celestial spirit god. His silver armor shattered, exposing his bloody and mangled body, his helmet thrown aside, his black hair splayed out. The celestial spirit god's eyes widened, incredulously looking at Guan. Guan suddenly appeared before him, his left hand quickly grasping the celestial spirit god's long hair, then raising his sword to slash. The sword light shone across the universe, illuminating thousands of great worlds and countless little worlds. Celestial spirit immortal venerable, and immortal seeker, and the observing great power cultivators from afar all blinked their eyes. And when they opened them again, the omnipresent celestial Tao pressure enveloping the universe began to dissipate. They all looked in the same direction and saw a blurred figure floating in the void, one hand wielding a sword, the other holding the decapitated head of the celestial spirit god. Behind that figure still lingered the magnificent blue sword shadow, scattered deep into the universe. The divine blood of the celestial spirit god spilled down, scorching the space, causing meteors to be penetrated by the droplets, much of the divine blood falling into the celestial spirit great world, vanishing from the mortal world. The celestial spirit immortal venerable watched, dumbfounded. And too was shocked. He knew his master was strong, but the celestial spirit god had already demonstrated an invincible demeanor, and such a powerful being had no chance against his master. Even more hopeless than the celestial spirit immortal venerable facing the celestial spirit god. At that moment, the decapitated head of the celestial spirit god that Guan held in his hand still had its eyes open, gazing up at Guan, filled with fear. It's impossible. Who are you really? The celestial spirit god asked in a trembling voice, unable to accept that his celestial Tao skill had been annihilated by a single sword strike. Even an image came to his mind. Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. That person, whose sword Tao talent had left a deep impression, if allowed to grow, could he reach the level of the man before him? Guan looked down at him expressionlessly, his right hand performing the universe in hand divine power, drawing the head into his palm, disappearing from sight. After doing all this, Guan turned around, looking at the universe. His eternal infinite divine sword had broken the celestial Tao skill. Yet the universe was still collapsing. This scene seemed to be moving towards the future he had predicted before. Although he was powerful, he could not manipulate the Tao rules of the Great Thousand World. because this great thousand world did not belong to him. Guan could feel that the reason for the universe's collapse was not just the celestial Idao skill, but other factors as well. His gaze looked far towards the celestial spirit immortal venerable. The celestial spirit immortal venerable was also looking back at him, his face calm like a deep lake. And Hao also snapped out of his excitement, realizing the universe was collapsing, the atmosphere everywhere dense with danger and tension. Could it be? And Hao seemed to think of something, his expression turning unsightly. The celestial spirit immortal venerable turned his head towards him and calmly said, "Previously, I extracted all the heaven and earth's power, already causing this great thousand world to lose its stable Tao order, coupled with the disruption of the celestial Idao skill. This great thousand world is on the verge of annihilation, ceasing to exist." Upon hearing this, and Hao, surprisingly unalarmed, looked at the celestial spirit immortal venerable and asked, "What should we do then? Don't you have the slightest pity for all living beings?" The celestial spirit immortal venerable turned his head, looking far off at the figure of Guan, and said, "Previously indeed I had none. However, when I saw him just now protecting the creatures of various heavens and earths from the oppression of the celestial Idao skill, I suddenly felt that I really should do something. It's also a good opportunity for me to repay him for his care and instruction towards you." As his words fell, the celestial spirit immortal venerable burst into a bright light. His celestial Tao golden core and heaven and earth Tao fruit flew out from his chest, hovering over his shoulders. "I will let this great thousand world be reborn in a new way, wash away the past cause and effect, allowing celestial court to not pursue the death of the celestial spirit god, so he can stay here at ease." Search the Novel Fire Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 553. Reshaping the Great Thousand World. Hearing the words of celestial spirit immortal venerable, and Hao's expression darkened. He realized what the celestial spirit immortal venerable intended to do, and he could neither agree with it nor stop it. The celestial spirit immortal venerable wanted to sacrifice himself to save all living beings. As a son, and Hao could not agree, yet he could not disregard the life and death of all beings to stop him either. The celestial spirit immortal venerable took a deep look at Guan. The celestial Tao golden core on his shoulder burst forth with golden light, and the heaven and earth Tao fruit rose up, quickly blossoming into expanding spiritual energy that symbolized vigorous life force. And Hao was baptized by the celestial Tao spiritual qi, and his wounds recovered rapidly. He clenched his fists tightly, gritting his teeth as he watched the gradually dissipating figure of the celestial spirit immortal venerable. Guan watched this scene from afar, feeling somewhat conflicted. He guessed that the celestial spirit immortal venerable had noticed him, which made him uneasy. However, due to the relationship between the celestial spirit immortal venerable and Hao, he could not make a move against the celestial spirit immortal venerable. Now that the celestial spirit immortal venerable had chosen to sacrifice himself to protect the beings of great heaven and earth, it was also a good thing for Guan. "I was born in the celestial spirit great world, and owe you a debt of gratitude. If there is a chance in the future, I will assist you in being reborn." That's what Guan thought to himself. He didn't dwell on it any longer, but chose to carefully sense the creation of heaven and earth. He too could create a great thousand world, but even if he did, he could not take a lifespan from his own great thousand world, so he did not do so. Taking a lifespan from within his own great thousand world would be like devouring his own mana, which would not increase his mana. However, even without doing so, he could comprehend the creation of the celestial spirit immortal venerable, thereby enhancing his understanding of the Tao. This was a rare opportunity, an opportunity brought by the self-sacrifice of an innate golden immortal. As the spiritual energy of nature spread, the twisted space of the universe gradually calmed down. The beings of the celestial spirit great world, being the first to be swept by the nature's spiritual energy, recovered their chi power. The celestial vault also quickly took shape, replacing the view of the cosmic starry sky. Everything was returning to normal. At that moment, the immortal seeker unexpectedly flew towards Guan. If it weren't for their past acquaintance, Guan wouldn't have let him approach. With the mystery of the celestial dark purple micro Saint Tao body, even when the immortal seeker arrived in front of Guan, he still couldn't see his true form. Looking at the blurred image of Guan, the immortal seeker took a deep breath and said, "Fellow Taoist, by slaying the celestial spirit god, you will bring immense troubles upon yourself. Each immortal god holds a position in the celestial Tao. Once they fall, the celestial court must be aware. Even if you use cause and effect to isolate this great thousand world, as long as the celestial court wants to investigate, finding you is only a matter of time. Among the celestial court, there are countless beings more powerful than the celestial spirit god. To the immortal gods of the celestial court, nothing is more important than its majesty." Guan looked down at the immortal seeker and asked, "So what are you trying to say?" The immortal seeker replied, "If fellow Taoists can secure a celestial Tao immortal position before the celestial court becomes aware, with your Tao practice, even if you're punished, the loss won't be significant. Celestial Tao immortal positions are easy to come by? I must be honest, I have an opportunity for a celestial Tao immortal position in my possession." "That's not necessary. You may leave now. Your presence is a threat to me and to this great thousand world." Gu An's response elicited a wry smile from the immortal seeker, who immediately bowed and took his leave. Before going far, his soul dispersed. The immortal seeker's method of fleeing this realm was self-demise. Guan wasn't much affected. He turned his gaze toward Anhao. Celestial spirit immortal venerable, was remaking the Tao rules of the great world, harboring a personal interest in bestowing his Tao inheritance upon Anhao. Even though it couldn't make Anhao's cultivation level soar directly, it could help Anhao cultivate better. Guan didn't interfere, nor did he fear any tricks from the celestial spirit immortal venerable, because he could sense that the causality of the celestial spirit immortal venerable was dissipating, not an act. However, Guan frowned lightly, his gaze shifting to the depths of the universe. As the celestial spirit immortal venerable was reconstructing the rules of the great thousand world, celestial Tao destiny appeared out of thin air along with the Tao. This made Guan very curious about the connection between the heavenly Tao and the great Tao. He had always thought that the heavenly Tao was weaker than the great Tao, or that the heavenly Tao was born based on the great Tao. Now it seemed that this heavenly Tao was as dominant as the great Tao. The figure of the celestial spirit immortal venerable completely faded away, and Anhao had fully recovered from his injuries. Anhao looked around, his eyebrows slightly furrowed. He too felt the destiny of the heavenly Tao. Could it be that all of this was not the doing of the celestial spirit god, and he only chose to act at this juncture? Anhao muttered to himself. His gaze then fell upon Guan. Guan felt his gaze and turned to look. Their eyes met, and Guan understood what was in Anhao's eyes. Anhao couldn't make out Gu An's expression, but being watched by Guan made him feel at peace, and a smile appeared on his face. Wasn't this the moment he had been looking forward to? You'd better think it through. The beings you save will eventually die, and the great thousand world will return to normal in time. Gu An's voice reached Anhao's ears. Anhao smiled and retorted, "Master, how many of the beings you saved are still alive? They will eventually die, and you still took action, didn't you?" Guan asked, "Are you willing to let go of an ex-Xian? And your wife, your children, can you truly cut all ties? Didn't you make arrangements for them? The only person I'm sorry to is you. I've lived for nearly 10,000 years and never repaid you, only caused you worries." Anhao spoke to Guan with a look of guilt. Guan really wanted to say that it was actually quite a simple task and no trouble at all, but looking at Anhao's expression, he knew that nothing he said would change Anhao's choice. Now Guan was strong, but not strong enough. At least not enough to free the great thousand world from the heavenly Tao. At least not enough to develop the world he lived in according to his wishes. However, Guan was quite relieved to see Anhao take on such responsibility. He couldn't change such an outcome, but he could leave Anhao a way out. Guan turned and disappeared into the void. More and more divine senses swept across, able to lock onto Anhao, yet not daring to come close. The previous battle made them shudder. Even though they hadn't seen clearly what had happened, The shadow of the eternal infinite divine sword and the grand and spectacular celestial I Dao skill still gave them chills. Even Taoist Zhangzizai immortal and profound Yuan free immortal would feel like they could be annihilated at any moment when facing the recent battle. And Hao looked toward the celestial spirit great world, his gaze filled with affection, and slowly raised his arms murmuring, "Young immortal emperor, I will carry out the task you left unfinished." Inside the Taoist field of the beginningless, an Xian celestial demon child, Chen Chuan, and others had not been stripped of their mana and chi power by the celestial spirit immortal venerable. They were always discussing the battle situation. Guan appeared out of nowhere beside an Xian. As he appeared, the crowd immediately gathered around. "Master, did you make a move? Was that sword intent just now the eternal infinite divine sword? Master, what's the situation in outer heaven now? And how in Jushi, who won and who lost? Who was the person who spoke earlier? They sounded so arrogant. I wonder how high their cultivation level is." Everyone kept asking, curious and excited. With the protection of the Taoist field of the beginningless, they hadn't truly felt the oppression from the outside world. Guan looked toward the celestial vault. "From now on, you will never see those two again." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was stunned, their excitement immediately extinguished, and they subconsciously looked at an Xian. They weren't familiar with Zhu Shi, they only knew that an Xian and an Hao were as close as siblings. An Xian too was stunned. She didn't have a breakdown of emotions, but looked at Guan and asked, "Master, have you seen him already?" "Yes." "Then let it be." An Xian was very calm, and Guan did not say more. He turned to the others. "A new era is coming. The universe will become infinitely vast. From now on, you will no longer live in the great heaven and earth, but in the great thousand world." The great thousand world! Everyone was astounded. They believed Gu An's words, and so they began to fantasize about the vastness of the great thousand world. And Sheng Tian was also somewhat dazed. Although he had cut off the cause and effect with An Hao, he had always hoped to meet An Hao. Would he really never be able to meet him from now on? SE of the Novel Fire. Any *T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Look! Celestial Cyan suddenly pointed at the sky, exclaiming loudly. Everyone turned their heads to look and saw a sun appearing in the sky that was growing rapidly larger. Celestial Demon Child was about to ask Guan when suddenly, an unimaginable shockwave descended from the sky, leaving everyone in a bewildered state. The scene seemed to freeze. Everyone was fixed in place. Only Guan could still move. Guan looked up and could see An Hao's figure, which was fading away. An Hao had chosen the same path as his father, the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable. The Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable had chosen to sacrifice himself to reshape the Tao rules of the Great Thousand World. And An Hao had chosen to sacrifice himself to reassemble the shattered Great Thousand World. An Hao was able to do this because he had received the Tao of the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable. He had become the controller of the Great Thousand World. In order for all living beings to quickly survive the calamities set by the heavenly Tao, he chose to sacrifice himself. In this catastrophe, Zhu Shi was sent out of the universe by Immortal Seeker. The Celestial Spirit God was captured, and both the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable and An Hao fell one after another. At first glance, it seemed there were no victors. Guan sighed at the capriciousness of fate, but he was also looking forward to the brand new Great Thousand World. Anyway, this calamity was just a node in his life. He needed to keep striving to become stronger. Intuition telling him that one day he would no longer be able to conceal himself, and he would need to directly face the might of the celestial court. When that day comes, whether he would compromise and ascend to immortality or make other plans would depend on how high his cultivation level was. Guan retracted his gaze and walked toward his own pavilion. As for the immobilized crowd, they wouldn't have any issues. Guan deliberately allowed An Hao's power to enter the dojo, letting them rapidly get through the upcoming drastic changes of heaven and earth like all living beings. When they awoke, they would only think they had a dream. Guan suddenly looked in one direction, a trace of surprise in his voice. Everything in the universe was still under An Hao's power. Yet Xinjun was unaffected, still fervently drawing in her house. Guan felt a special aura from Shenzhen, one that he couldn't deduce. This made him even more curious. What kind of great Tao had Shenzhen stepped into? As Guan was pondering, a powerful light that drained all colors from everything descended from the sky, enveloping his figure and all of existence. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 554 Nine Heavens Cyan Bird. Taiching golden immortal sunlight was brilliant, filtering through the gaps in the leaves and leaving patches of light across the grass in the forest. An ex-cyan sat on a rock beside a stream, delivering a sermon to a group of boys and girls. Her voice was mesmerizing, so much so that even the birds perched on the trees cocked their heads to listen attentively. She had been speaking for half a day now, her patience greater than before, as a gentle smile constantly graced her face. Seeing the Qiankuan sect disciples enraptured by her Taoist teachings, an ex-cyan turned her head to look around but couldn't find Guan. However, she believed her master was still there. Indeed he was. 10 yards away, on an old tree, Guan was lying on a branch, hesitating as he stared at his attribute list. Name: Guan. Lifespan: 9,555/89,904,572,611. Physique: primordial infinite body. Cultivation level: heaven balancing golden immortal realm perfection. 800 years had passed since the Great Thousand Worlds restructuring, a cataclysmic process, but under and how and the celestial spirit immortal venerables protection, all beings were unaffected, feeling only as if they had sunk into a profound dream. Upon awakening from the dream, every major sect realized that the world had become boundlessly vast, so much so that even beings above the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, who flew towards outer heaven, were utterly astounded by the current world, the endless expanse of the world, a thicker celestial Tao light layer, and the universe had become even more dim. And how had gathered all the worlds within the cosmos to create the entirely new celestial spirit great world. The celestial spirit great world was more than 10,000 times larger than the celestial spirit great world. In the previous 10 millennia, not only the celestial spirit great world had faced calamities of the heavenly Tao, but other great worlds experienced the same. Without the protection of the supporting Tao sword venerable, many had long been eradicated of all life. Thus, after the restructuring of the celestial spirit great world, the heavens and the earth became vast yet desolate. With the world so infinitely vast and the number of living beings not even close to the new world's capacity, the calamities of the heavenly Tao receded. With no impetuousness left in nature's spiritual energy, young immortal emperor's proposal had been implemented by Anhao, and everything was evolving for the better. Worth mentioning is that after Anhao's sacrifice, his wife and children received considerable cosmic destiny, and within just 100 years, Guan witnessed the birth of a genius in the Yin family with a potential lifespan of 8,000 years. Guan wasn't sure if it was the world's favor or Anhao's will that looked after his descendants, but according to his calculations, the Yin family would rise in the next 10,000 years, eventually becoming one of the strong families in the world. Right now, Guan's hesitation was not about the affairs of others, but his own concerns. He planned to first comprehensively enhance his own Taoist techniques. Then, after accumulating another 200 billion years of lifespan, he could strike for an even higher realm. A lifespan nearing 900 billion years seemed massive, but in truth, if he intended to enhance every aspect, it would probably be spent soon. No matter, he must improve. Even though the celestial spirit immortal venerable had already reshaped the order of the great Tao in the Great Thousand World, and the celestial spirit god had not fallen, temporarily avoiding the celestial court's notice, he had to maintain the pace of getting stronger. After this increase in strength, he would start dealing with the celestial spirit god. Guan began to utilize his lifespan breakthrough. You have activated the lifespan breakthrough function. Based on your current realm, the following breakthrough locations have been selected for you. 1. Ascending to Yellow Heaven. 2. Celestial Extreme 9 Heavens. 3. Abyss Tao C4. Path of the Great Tao. 5. Eastern Sea Celestial Palace. 6. Primordial Emperor Domain. 7. Profound Abyss Divine Pool. 8. Golden Immortal Ancestor Tree. 9. Ling Mountain. Looking at the choices that had popped up before him, many of which he was seeing for the first time, Guan couldn't help but be moved by the infinite vastness of the Great Tao. The path of the Great Tao connected the 3,000 great worlds, and beyond the Great World were many more mysterious places. Guan's previous breakthrough had taken him to the celestial extreme 9 heavens, which left a deep impression on him. After some contemplation, he felt that returning to the celestial extreme 9 heavens was the best option. He was uncertain of the other locations, and although the celestial extreme 9 heavens had powerful beings, they were few in number. With his decision made, Guan chose the celestial extreme 9 heavens for teleportation. Teleporting to celestial extreme 9 heavens will require the consumption of 10 billion years of lifespan. Do you wish to proceed? Continue. Guan closed his eyes after making his choice, and that long-absent sensation of dizziness appeared. After a while, Guan opened his eyes, and what met his gaze was an endless sea of clouds, majestic and vast. The sky was still so high, with no land in sight, and no matter which direction he looked, he saw nothing but the sea of clouds and the sky. He immediately activated his lifespan barrier, and sat down to meditate on the spot. Without saying a word, he began to evolve and improve, starting with his physique. Each time, Guan invested 1 billion years of lifespan, operating slowly. It took nearly 4 billion years to advance from the primordial Tao golden body to the primordial infinite body. This time would surely take even more. Billion after billion years, Guan was collected and composed, not feeling the slightest bit of heartache. In the end, it took approximately 50 billion years for the primordial infinite body to advance to the primordial reincarnation, undying body. As the final prompt fell, an enormous surge of Tao spiritual qi flooded towards Guan. The boundless sea of clouds began to churn in a very short time, luckily, not as dramatically as the previous breakthrough. Guan closed his eyes and began to immerse himself. An hour later, his physique's transformation was successful. With the primordial reincarnation undying body, not only did his physique grow stronger, but the power of the Great Tao could no longer control his flesh, and it was not worn down by reincarnation. Even if his lifespan reached its limit, his body could exist forever. Now he could enter reincarnation in his physical form as smoothly as a fish takes to water. Guan opened his eyes and his gaze fell on the cultivation technique column in his attribute list. Upgrade the main technique first. Great Tao Great Freedom as you wish Bible. He began to invest lifespan for evolution. Investing 36 billion years of lifespan at once, the Great Tao Great Freedom as you wish Bible was elevated to the Taoist Dominator skill, reaching an in-depth level of understanding. Tao spiritual qi surged toward him once again, and an endless stream of Taoist technique memories burst forth in his mind. Sar the Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The Taoist Dominator skill, as the name implies, could dominate the Great Tao. Once mastered, Guan could comprehend any kind of Great Tao, and in facing any kind of Great Tao, he could discern its weaknesses in an extremely short time. Most importantly, this technique could merge the 3,000 Great Tao into one force, aptly named the Dominator's power. Another half an hour passed, and Guan successfully mastered the Taoist Dominator skill. He didn't have time to experience it in depth and continued to enhance other Taoist techniques. Regardless of the tier the Taoist technique reached, lifespan evolution could always allow Guan to master it within half an hour, which was also a significant advantage. The Great Thousand Following Heart to Void skill was upgraded to the Sun and Moon Selfless Divine Tao, consuming nearly 50 billion years of lifespan. This technique helped Guan to conceal his cultivation level and aura. Even those with a realm higher than his could not see through it. Though of course if the disparity in cultivation was too vast, it might not remain hidden, which was why he continued to elevate this technique. The Sun and Moon Selfless Divine Tao was even more domineering, allowing Guan to disappear into the order of the Great Tao. Even if he was still present, no one would detect him. He could even turn his aura into the sun, moon and stars, perfectly concealing himself. Again, the inheritance took half an hour. After the inheritance ended, Guan's eyes turned to the secret skills, preparing to upgrade his combat methods. Just then, a vast aura descended, one that far surpassed that of the heaven-balancing golden immortal, causing a slight change in Guan's expression. He looked up. He saw a gigantic cyan bird appear in the sky. Its wings spread wide, eclipsing the sun. Its feathers shimmered with the colors of the rainbow, like a godly bird from creation, radiating an endless ancient and holy aura. This cyan bird was by far the most colossal creature Guan had ever seen. Even set against the celestial extreme nine heavens, the celestial vault seemed almost incapable of containing it. Guan hurled a lifespan detection at the cyan bird. Nine heavens cyan bird. Early stage of Taiching Golden Immortal Realm 218,726,929, 702/50, 000, 000, 000, 000, 000//50, 000, 000, 000, more than 200 billion years old. A lifespan of 50 trillion years. Truly terrifying. Killing it would direct unlock the ability for a trillion years of lifespan. But the words Taiching Golden Immortal only allowed Guan to contemplate the idea. Of course, even if Guan had the ability to slay it, he would not take action. That was not his style. Moreover, he suspected that behind the nine heavens cyan bird, there stood even more powerful immortals, like the nine heavens immortal emperor. As Guan marveled at the nine heavens cyan bird's lifespan, the bird suddenly descended, landing 10,000 miles away. 10,000 miles is a long distance for mortals, but to the nine heavens cyan bird, a single movement of its claws could reach Guan's dojo. This made Guan tense, ready to teleport away at any moment. The nine heavens cyan bird folded its wings and perched on the sea of clouds, its head reaching unscalable heights. Guan then saw a figure emerge, the white-robed woman known as the nine heavens immortal emperor, appearing atop the head of the nine heavens cyan bird. As before, Guan was still unable to perform lifespan detection on the nine heavens immortal emperor, indicating that her true body was not present. Two powerful entities appeared beside her, causing Guan to dare not continue his evolution. He decided to wait for the nine heavens immortal emperor and the nine heavens cyan bird to leave before resuming. If they refused to leave, he would have no choice but to teleport back to the celestial spirit great world. Search the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 555. Entering Reincarnation. Nine heavens immortal emperor stood atop the head of the nine heavens cyan bird, his gaze sweeping across the sea of clouds, which tightened Guan's heart and made him constantly ready to teleport back. Each teleportation needed 100 billion year lifespan, making it 200 billion year lifespan for a round trip. Naturally, Guan was reluctant to return lightly. The nine heavens immortal emperor had not discovered the lifespan barrier. The nine heavens cyan bird was also unaware. After a while, a slightly childish female voice rang out. "Your Majesty, are you truly not going to the grand assembly of 10,000 immortals?" Guan could feel that this voice originated from the nine heavens cyan bird, even though the cyan bird had not spoken. The nine heavens immortal emperor, looking into the distance with a cold expression, replied, "Boring. I've attended several times. There's not much difference. All superficial interactions, and I don't need the opportunities from the grand assembly of 10,000 immortals. Your Majesty, although the celestial extreme nine heavens is uniquely endowed, discussing Tao with other immortal cultivation great powers could further aid your cultivation. If you wish to go, you can go on my behalf. If you don't go, there's no point in me going. Forget it, let's not go. By the way, Your Majesty, what do you think caused this anomaly?" The nine heavens cyan bird changed the topic and looked around the boundless sea of clouds as it spoke. The nine heavens immortal emperor, expressionless, said, "The celestial extreme nine heavens, located above the great thousand world, is a juncture of the great Tao. The anomaly here might have originated from the lower realm. Even I cannot directly determine." Hearing this, the nine heavens cyan bird fell into thought, its bird eyes flickering with strange light. Above the great thousand world? Guan captured this information. growing more curious about the celestial extreme nine heavens. Could it be that the nine heavens immortal emperor has no connection to the celestial court? Guan did not feel the celestial Tao destiny from the nine heavens Siam bird. And as for the nine heavens immortal emperor, since she was not the true body, he could not sense anything. If he closed his eyes, he wouldn't even be aware of her presence. After a while, the nine heavens immortal emperor leaped into the air and flew towards the distance. The nine heavens Siam bird followed closely behind, and they soon vanished at the end of the sea of clouds. Guan relaxed and waited patiently. 1 hour later, no longer sensing the aura of nine heavens Siam bird, he reopened the attribute panel and continued to enhance. Next up was the eternal infinite divine sword. Although he had already mastered the sacred heart sword Tao, which merged with the river of sword Tao, deemed an independent existence, he felt he couldn't solely rely on the sacred heart sword Tao. He needed stronger sword techniques as his trump card. The eternal infinite divine sword evolved into the 3,000 slaying Tao swords, achieving the mastery realm, consuming 80 billion year lifespan. During the half-hour inheritance, neither the nine heavens immortal emperor nor the nine heavens Siam bird returned. Thus, Guan continued to invest his lifespan in evolution. Profound yellow eternal Tao step advanced into Taoless celestial net step, consuming 42 billion year lifespan, and reaching the realm of integration. Celestial dark purple micro Saint Tao body evolved into Hongming void golden body, also at the realm of integration, consuming 76 billion year lifespan. After upgrading the most core Taoist techniques, Guan turned his attention to the great soul capturing immortal technique. This technique could perform soul search, but as the enemy's realm was higher, the difficulty of soul search increased. It needed enhancement. This was still the transformation of soul capturing technique that Jiang Qiong had taught him years ago. Guan spent 130 billion year lifespan in one breath, allowing the great soul capturing immortal technique to advance several levels, finally evolving into Calamity Absolute I. Calamity Absolute I could not only perform soul search but also bring bad luck to the enemy, with the nature of the calamity shaped by the caster's imagination. A very domineering divine skill. That's it. Search * the novel, F. Iyer. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Guan dared not continue evolving because, accounting for the lifespan barrier's consumption, he only had 230 billion year lifespan left and still needed 100 billion year lifespan to teleport back. After a series of evolutions and enhancements, Guan felt a complete transformation even though his cultivation level had not increased. His strength had greatly changed. Now handling celestial spirit god should be effortless. Thinking this, Guan stood up. He gazed at the constantly churning sea of clouds, as if for one last look, since he definitely needed to change locations upon the next breakthrough. The recent appearance of the nine heavens immortal emperor and nine heavens Siam bird was definitely not a coincidence. They must have intended to investigate his whereabouts. Even if their words didn't directly reflect it, he had to stay alert. Guan chose to teleport back, and as he thought, he vanished on the spot. Guan returned to the forest near the Qiankuan sect, and could no longer see an Xian and the others. Unable to find him, an Xian returned to the dojo to cultivate. Guan did not hurry back. He jumped down from a tree, crossed a creek, and sat down on a large stone by the creek. Lifting his right hand, palm facing upwards, a skull appeared in his palm, the size of a pebble, indeed that of the celestial spirit god. The disheveled celestial spirit god opened his eyes and looked up at Guan, his expression becoming calm. After a century of suppression, he had adjusted his mindset and was prepared to face any outcome. Guan's pupils suddenly turned deep red, and the pupils of the celestial spirit god facing him involuntarily widened. Then his expression turned dull. Calamity Absolute I. He began to scour the memories of the celestial spirit god. The morning sun shone down, casting a long shadow of Guan. After a long while, Guan's eyes returned to their normal color, and his brows furrowed. The memories of the celestial spirit god were too simple. Spending years meditating under the world gate, much of his memory was blank, presumably related to the celestial court. However, Guan still obtained some useful information, such as why the celestial spirit god plotted against the celestial spirit immortal venerable. Many years ago, the celestial spirit god could have obliterated the celestial spirit great world, but he wanted to obtain the world punishment Tao Pearl held by the celestial spirit immortal venerable. The world punishment Tao Pearl, born from the great Tao, was a supreme treasure that could be used in battle and for comprehending the Tao, with infinite marvelous uses. The celestial spirit immortal venerable dared not readily use the pearl, fearing its master would come searching. The owner of the world punishment Tao Pearl was the Emperor Ziwei. Through the memory of the celestial spirit immortal venerable, Guan saw the Emperor Ziwei. This Emperor Ziwei looked exactly like the unparalleled Emperor Ziwei that the Black Profound Emperor had encountered in his lifetime. Guan guessed that the Emperor Ziwei was the reincarnation body of the Emperor Ziwei. Great powers project across the heavens, manifesting reincarnation which is common. How formidable was the Emperor Ziwei, able to fight against hundreds at the same realm, and even force enemies to retreat. No wonder, being the reincarnation of the Emperor Ziwei. As Guan reflected inwardly, the celestial spirit god regained his senses. Startled, he looked at Guan and asked, "What have you done to me?" Guan looked down at him and inquired, "Do you want to die, or do you want to live?" When Guan questioned whether the celestial spirit god's apocalyptic acts were related to the celestial court, and the celestial spirit god admitted it was his own selfishness, Guan actually felt a trace of respect for him. The celestial spirit god was bold and accountable. It seemed a pity to kill such a person directly. The destruction by the celestial spirit god was nefarious to living beings, but from a cosmic perspective, he protected the cosmic order. Of course, whether the celestial spirit god wanted to live depended on his attitude. Faced with Guan's question, the celestial spirit god furrowed his brows. After a moment of silence, he said, "I cannot possibly serve you. My fate today is merely reaping what I sowed. Had I not coveted the treasure and followed the heavenly Tao earlier, it would not have come to this. Just kill me." Having said so, the celestial spirit god closed his eyes. Suddenly, Guan asked, "Have you ever been immortal?" Hearing this, the celestial spirit god opened his eyes, looking at Guan in surprise. In the memory of the celestial spirit god, he was born a favored child of heaven, and was taken as a disciple by the Emperor Ziwei early on. He stood above the masses from birth. Guan looked down at him and said coldly, "To kill you now would be too easy for you. Go to the human world and experience the struggles of humanity. In the eyes of immortal gods, mortal spirits are no different from dust, but how would you know the effort mortal spirits make just to survive?" As his words fell, Guan flipped his hand and threw the celestial spirit god into the creek. As the celestial spirit god fell, he looked at Guan. In his view, Guan was so magnificent. Indeed, he did not understand human suffering, but at that moment, he understood how mortals looked up to immortal gods. His vision quickly plunged into darkness. After Guan flipped his hand to let him go, he used his own divine sense to cast him into the cycle of reincarnation. After contemplating the Taoist dominator skill and the sun and moon selfless divine Tao, Guan could simply manipulate the path of reincarnation and make the celestial spirit god reincarnate. It was not difficult for him. He made the celestial spirit god be born in the celestial spirit great world to prevent him from escaping. The celestial spirit god was already bound by the Guthyuan divine Tao, and his divine soul sealed. Without Guan's action, he would remain forever in the cycle of reincarnation, unable to escape. Search the novel Fire Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 556. Guan's story. Guan entered the Taoist field of the beginningless, and from a distance he saw two people engaged in combat high up on the mountains. It was Lv Xian and Chen Chuan. These two were the most combative, even more so than the blood prison great saint, but they were merely sparring, not fighting out of anger, so Guan never stopped them. Watching Chen Chuan's elegance in the sky, Guan was very gratified. In his memories, he had never seen Xiaochuan so spirited and confident. He also pondered when to let Chen Chuan recover his memories from his past life, but he felt that such matters shouldn't be rushed, Letting nature take its course was best. A figure suddenly appeared beside Guan. It was an Exian, who looked at Guan with a grievance and said, "Master, why didn't you say a word to me when you left yesterday?" You're the master. Or am I the master? I just wanted to go out with you for a bit. If you're bored, you could go to the Qiankuan sect. Many new things will happen there, and I will also go to see the excitement." Really? Really? Guan was not lying. With the reshaping of the celestial spirit great world, various great heaven and earth started to interconnect. Sects began to wander the world, and in the coming years, the entire celestial spirit great world would embrace a thriving vitality. A new era was beginning. Sects vied for supremacy. Different great heaven and earth harbored different immortal cultivation philosophies, and these philosophies would clash, creating more sparks. The next era would be unprecedented. Those great powers who survived from the old era would rise to the pinnacle of authority, and the new great world would be far stronger than before. The new rules of heaven and earth would conceive more geniuses, even elevating the potential of these talents. Guan felt the destiny of heaven and earth, already foreseeing the birth of many geniuses with the ultimate lifespan of 9,999 years. He was very much looking forward to it. As the master and disciple chatted, they walked along the mountain path. The gentle breeze made an Exian a bit distracted. Unconsciously, she was already 9,521 years old. She felt her life experiences weren't rich, but this also meant she had lived a peaceful and comfortable life. She turned her head to look at her master beside her. His profile sent her heart into a state of tranquility. SE of the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. She too began to feel anticipation. 10,000 years later, a million years later, or even 10 million years later, would she still be able to follow by her master's side? If she followed, what kinds of views would she see? The spring festival of the Qiankuan sect had just ended, and the shadows of cultivators could be seen everywhere between the mountains. Most of the cultivators were flying in the same direction, towards a giant city surrounded by mountains on all sides, bursting with rays of light like a mirage, brimming with the grandeur of an immortal city. This city was Qiankuan sect's main city. 1,000 years had passed since the great world was reshaped. The Qiankuan sect seized the opportunity to develop quickly, not only becoming the leader of the orthodox Taoist sect on the nine-spirit continent, but also establishing prestige in the surrounding seas. This year, Qiankuan sect planned to hold the 100 Teachings Conference, inviting hundreds of orthodox Taoist sects from inside and outside the seas to discuss and exchange Taoist techniques. This was the first time for Qiankuan sect to hold such an event, making Qiankuan sect's main city extraordinarily lively. Within the main city, the library pavilion was packed. Under Nzin's guidance, the structure of Qiankuan sect was almost identical to the Supreme sects. However, Qiankuan sect was far away from the Supreme sect, so the two sects had not intersected for the time being. Why is Qiankuan Venerable sold out again? With the foundation of the Qiankuan sect, why can't you print a few more copies? A young male disciple stood in front of the counter, glaring at the library pavilion disciple and demanded. The library pavilion disciple spread his hands helplessly and said, "Brother, shouting at me is no use, I'm just in charge of selling." The young male disciple glared at him, and left with a flick of his sleeve. Then another disciple approached the counter to inquire about the book Qiankuan Venerable. At this moment, on the second floor of the library pavilion, Guan, dressed in blue robes, stood in front of a row of bookshelves browsing books. Celestial Demon Child came over, and saw the title of the book he was looking at, not helping but curl her lips in distaste. "Young master, even a book like this is worth your time?" Outside the dojo, Guan had instructed not to call him master, but young master instead. Although Celestial Demon Child didn't understand, she thought calling him young master was quite nice. At least it made their relationship seem more equal, which often led her to wild fantasies. Guan, holding Nine Spirits Hero Legend, smiled softly and said, "As long as it's a book, it's worth reading." Since he started writing within the Qiankuan sect, a trend of novels had been set off, and Nine Spirits Hero Legend was one such novel about the protagonist's adventures, clearly trying to imitate his style. Hearing Gu An's words, Celestial Demon Child pursed her lips and then turned to leave. She planned to take a walk in the city. With her cultivation level of the loose immortal realm, she was considered a great cultivator within Qiankuan's sect and wouldn't run into trouble, especially with Guan there. After Celestial Demon Child left, Guan continued reading. It wasn't long before two women ascended to the second floor, none other than Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai. Since being saved by an Xian, they had lived on the Nine-Spirit continent. Later, seeing the Qiankuan sects rise to power, they voluntarily joined, and now they were also disciples of the Qiankuan sect. In reality, given their status, they could become elders, but they didn't want to be too tied down to the Qiankuan sect, knowing that they would eventually leave. Sis, why did we come here? Tang Kai asked in confusion. The library pavilion was full of miscellaneous books. If one sought the pursuit of Taoist techniques, they would visit the scripture pavilion. Li Xuanyu answered. Just to look around. Your heart is too impatient. It's good to temper it. Her gaze swept through the second floor, passing over each disciple as if seeking something. However, after looking around, she did not find the person she was looking for, and a look of disappointment flashed in her eyes. Tang Kai, upon hearing Li Xuanyu's words, immediately felt dissatisfied. She had just completed a meditation retreat of 800 years, and still she was considered impatient? She was about to retort when she saw Li Xuanyu walk toward the stairs leading to the third floor. I definitely am not impatient. These years, Tang Kai caught up with Li Xuanyu and tried to defend herself. Senior Sister Li. A voice came through, bringing Li Xuanyu's steps to a halt. She turned to look and saw Guan, holding a book and walking between two rows of bookshelves. Li Xuanyu felt a little dazed, having not seen him for 10,000 years. Guan seemed totally different from the person in her memories. The Guan in her memory was cautious and reserved, but the Guan before her now was handsome and extraordinary, seemingly an immortal walking amongst mortals. Tang Kai glanced at Guan, her expression one of suspicion. She was astounded at her first sight of Guan. What a handsome man. This was only her personal judgment, and not a case of love at first sight. She had wandered the world and seen many people, but had never come across a cultivator with a presence like Gu An's. Even her beloved Liya did not have an aura to match Gu An's. What attracted her more to Liya was his heroism and loyalty. Guan walked over to Li Xuanyu and asked with a smile, Senior Sister Li, don't you recognize me? Li Xuanyu came back to her senses and said with emotion, Of course I recognize you. To be honest, the reason I've come here is to look for you. After all, your disciple is also on this continent, and everything about the Qiankuan sect is a lot like the Supreme sect. I guessed it had something to do with you. She didn't know that Guan was the supporting Dao sword venerable, but the strength of an Xian proved Gu An's Dao practice had already surpassed hers. The reason she wanted to find Guan was merely to express her gratitude in person. She was not foolish. And Zin's rescue surely must have been at Gu An's behest. I don't have such great capabilities. How about we find an inn to catch up on old times? Guan asked with a smile, and naturally, Li Xuanyu had no objections. Guan did not neglect Tang Kai and introduced himself to her. After exchanging pleasantries, the three of them went downstairs. Noticing Guan spending money to buy the Nine Spirits hero legend, Tang Kai's expression became odd. Now aware that Guan was Zin's master, she held him in high esteem, but she hadn't imagined that such a great cultivator would read such trivial texts. Shouldn't a great cultivator be delving into the great Tao? Li Xuanyu, however, didn't mind. She knew Guan liked reading books. Seeing that Guan still had the same hobby made her feel a sense of closeness, as though the distance between them had narrowed. Later on, the three of them sat down at the closest inn, and after inquiring about each other's experiences, Guan turned the conversation to Liya, as Liya was the hub of their shared connections. Mention of Liya immediately excited Tang Kai, as his fame had already spread to the Nine-Spirit continent. Liya, with the 9 extremes sacred heart sword in hand, might not yet be the world's preeminent sword cultivator, but his strength was already formidable. Coupled with his adventurous spirit, his fame was widespread. People say he's made enemies with the Shaking Light Saint Sex Saint, and is being hunted by them. I want to help him, but our sister said I'd just be in the way. Guan, since you are Li Ya's junior brother, can you help him? Tang Kai looked at Guan with a tone full of supplication. She had been through a lot with Li Ya and knew the hardships that lay behind his fame. He must be seriously injured again, otherwise it wouldn't have come to this point of enmity. Before Guan could reply, Li Xuanyu spoke up coldly. Tang Kai, don't bother junior brother Gu with Li Ya's affairs. Those were his own choices. Junior brother Gu has already saved us. We owe him a great debt of gratitude. How could we trouble him further? But there are no buts, Li Xuanyu said decisively, leaving Tang Kai with no choice but to nod in resignation. Guan looked at Li Xuanyu, finding her solemnity a bit amusing, and replied, Shaking Light Saint sect is indeed formidable, and is said to have the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma, who is of the sixth heaven of the immortal path. They're not easy to provoke. Sixth heaven of the immortal path. Li Xuanyu's complexion turned unnaturally pale, while Tang Kai grew tense. Guan comforted them. Don't worry. With the immortal path ultimate treasure, divine exotic city, and the 9 extreme sacred heart sword in his hands, senior brother Li is a man of great destiny. He will surmount the danger. That sword is the world's foremost divine sword. Hearing his words, Li Xuanyu could only nod, while Tang Kai sank into deep worry. Afterward, Guan brought up the 100 Teachings Conference of the Qiankuan sect. Although Li Xuanyu was still engaging in the conversation, the mood had clearly grown colder. Half an hour later, Guan said goodbye to the 2 women. Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai stood at the entrance of the inn, watching Guan walk away. Sister, he's Li Ya's junior brother, and thus from the Supreme Sect. Why has he come alone to this faraway place? Tang Kai asked curiously. Li Xuanyu, looking at Gu An's receding figure, said, Perhaps he's burdened with something, forcing him to leave his homeland. In life, we're often compelled by circumstances beyond our control. Upon hearing this, Tang Kai felt there was a story behind Gu An's silhouette, much like Li Ya. Just then, they saw a stunningly beautiful woman swiftly emerge from the crowd, quickly wrap her arm around Gu An's, and move forward with laughter and conversation, their intimacy evident. They soon disappeared into the throng of people. Tang Kai opened her mouth as if to ask something, but didn't manage to articulate her question. Li Xuanyu too remained silent. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 557. Celestial Spirit Reincarnation. Borrowing life amid the scorching summer days, within the Taoist field of the beginningless, beside a lake, Guan was preaching the great Tao to his disciples, who were listening as if intoxicated. Seeing that everyone had sunk into the enlightenment of the Tao, Guan took out a jade flute from his bosom, and admired it closely. Guan, the great Tao you speak of is truly profound and vast, conjuring in me numerous visions. However, I am very curious, have you actually seen those embodiments of the great Tao? Shenzhen opened her eyes, looked at Guan, and asked curiously. She was the closest to Guan, and her voice was so soft that it did not disturb the others. Guan glanced at Shenzhen and said, The great Tao is everywhere. What have you seen? Where do you wish to go? With a troubled look, Shenzhen said, I saw the universe and the stars, and a white staircase leading to a door. What kind of door? Indescribable, all I can remember now is vague, but I'm sure it was a door. Shenzhen recounted while speaking. After a pause, she continued to ask, Guan, do you think those visions I see could be some form of calculation? Guan smiled at her and said, That's something you'll have to feel and judge for yourself. It's good that you're thinking about this. Never lose your reverence for the unknown. Always be vigilant, for it is often more beneficial than not. Shenzhen nodded and said, Oh, be careful. If the great Tao guides me somewhere, I'm certain I won't go. She had heard from Guan about the experiences of An Hao and Zhu Shi, which made her even more vigilant about inexplicable opportunities. The visions she saw while seeking the Tao seemed like a lure, and she didn't want to be deceived. If you encounter things that are hard to judge, you can also talk to me about them, Guan said, then stood and turned to walk toward the nearby woods. Shenzhen had no further questions to ask, and she didn't follow Guan's steps. After so many years, She had grown less curious about where Guan went. Now she just wanted to comprehend the great Tao. In its vastness, she could experience all the things she desired. She aspired to become a great cultivator, like Guan elsewhere. Guan stepped into the woods, and in one step went to another place in the human world. This was a mortal city, bustling streets, with no cultivators seen among the throngs of people, just 2 or 3 transformed demons. However, they did not do any harm but instead were performing their talents in a pavilion known as the Apricot Flower Tower. Guan appeared on the street without drawing the attention of the passers-by, for no one could see him. Even a boy passed through his body, feeling no physical collision. Guan's gaze fell on the side of the street, where a group of beggars squatted in front of a courtyard wall. Among them, a 14 or 15-year-old boy sat with his head down. On closer examination, he had no legs and only 2 fingers on his right hand, a sight that made it difficult to imagine what kind of torment he had endured. This boy was a reincarnation of the celestial spirit god. This was his 39th time being reincarnated. He was born in a village, and before he was 1 year old, his family was raided by bandits, who killed everyone and sold him off. After a life of constant upheaval and numerous struggles, he ended up in such a tragic state. Despite the suffering of the celestial spirit god, Guan had no intention of intervening. Nevertheless, in every life of the celestial spirit god, he would observe. It wasn't to ridicule the celestial spirit god, but rather to help him recall some of his previous lives' memories at the time of his death, to let him feel the disparity between immortal gods and mortals. Oddly enough, Guan had not deliberately made the celestial spirit god experience a life of suffering, but most of his lives in the cycle of reincarnation were miserable. And even if born in happiness, he tended to die young, living to a maximum of 70 years in the best-case scenario. On second thought, it was normal, as most mortals have difficulty living past 70. In the scorching summer, this life of the celestial spirit god would end on the flourishing streets, with no one caring about his death. Not until a house servant from a wealthy nearby household dragged his body away, ultimately dumped in the wilderness, and devoured by scavenging wolves. And so, Guan merely stood on the street watching the celestial spirit god, with people coming and going as if in a dream. Search * the novel, F. Iyer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early, and in the highest quality. This live celestial spirit, named Little Five, had been adopted by an old beggar. He was the 5th child taken in by the old man, hence the name Little Five. At the beginning of the year, the old beggar passed away, and Little Five now followed the eldest child for survival, presently in the throes of illness. To seek medicinal herbs, the eldest was at that moment being beaten by the servants of a medicine shop on another street. This city bustled with such vibrancy. People were drinking and making merry, spilling wine and meat on their tables. Some were reciting poetry and discussing romance under the trees, while others were barely breathing, lying on their beds as their family fought over money for medicine. There were people who went about their routines like zombies, thinking not of the future, but of ending the day's tasks sooner. The countless conditions of sentient beings unfolded before Guan's eyes, his expression unchanging, just quietly watching Little Five. Little Five seemed to feel something and slowly lifted his head. The streets were noisy and busy before his eyes. The close proximity of prosperity felt unattainably distant. In a daze, he saw an additional figure on the street, with people passing right through it, which was very eerie. His hands trembling, he raised them and rubbed his eyes to make sure he wasn't seeing things. Indeed, there was a figure that no one else but he could see. Could that be an immortal god? Xiao Wu spoke weakly, while the 2 beggars beside him were asleep and didn't hear his murmur. And the other beggars didn't pay attention to him either, because everyone knew he was dying. Guan was surprised that Xiao Wu could see him. He hadn't intended for Xiao Wu to be able to see him. With that thought, Guan willed his presence to deepen, and he disappeared from Xiao Wu's sight in an instant. Seeing that he had disappeared, Xiao Wu instinctively looked in other directions, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't see Guan again. It was just an illusion after all. I knew someone like me couldn't possibly encounter an immortal god. Xiao Wu hung his head low again, continuing to endure the suffering from his illness. Until dusk, a beggar walked over, quivering. It was Xiao Wu's older brother, known as Lauda. He squatted in front of Xiao Wu, placed the medicinal herb bag stained with blood on the ground, shook Xiao Wu, but there was no response from him. Lauda's eyes widened with bloodshot eyes, and his right hand trembled as it moved toward Xiao Wu's nose. Soon he got a fright. He didn't push Xiao Wu away. Instead, he lifted Xiao Wu onto his back and, taking the medicinal herb bag, walked away. Following that, Lauda carried Xiao Wu on his back and went to all the large and small pharmacies in the city. But no one was willing to treat Xiao Wu. Out of desperation, Lauda gritted his teeth and carried Xiao Wu out of the city. As night fell, Lauda didn't look back amidst the fading hustle and bustle behind him, and pressed forward with unwavering determination. Lauda carried Xiao Wu aimlessly forward, not knowing where he should go, but he was unwilling to give up. It was only when he heard a wolf's howl that he finally snapped out of it, by which time he had already lost his way. "Don't be afraid, Xiao Wu, Big Brother will definitely save you, definitely," Lauda murmured to himself softly. He was trying to bolster his own courage. There were always legends in the countryside of immortals living deep in the mountains. The physicians in the human world were not willing to save his brother, so he had to seek out an immortal. He's already dead. Where do you think you're going to take him? Such deep brotherly love. Well, we could save him, but you'll have to give something in return. 3 feminine voices rang out, coquettish and seductive, making one's imagination run wild. Except in the darkness of the night, they seemed sinister and frightening. Fear gripped Lauda internally, his filthy face unable to hide the terror as he swallowed and asked, "What do I have to give to save my brother?" Could it be a demon? Their voices didn't sound like those of immortals. Lauda thought so, and without any other options available, he braced himself and inquired further. Suddenly, a cold wind blew from the depths of the forest, forcing Lauda to instinctively step back. On the trunk of the tree before him appeared 3 white foxes, smirking cunningly, their eyes glowing green in the dark night, which was quite terrifying. Lauda's legs trembled with fear. The sight of a demon directly drowned his heart in terror. Yet he did not throw Xiao Wu down and flee. One of the white foxes chuckled, "Become our servant, and we will save him." Lauda mustered his courage and asked, "Just as a servant?" "As a servant for life, until you die of old age. Oh, by the way, if your brother wants to live, he must borrow someone else's life. Before dawn, you must kill a person and bring them before us. Otherwise, once daylight comes, even if the celestial spirit God himself appeared, there would be no reversing fate." The white fox in the middle sneered coldly, her words sending a chill through Lauda. Kill someone? Search the Novel Fire Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 558 The Legend of Lu Qiuxian. The night was like water. 3 white foxes teasingly stared at the boss, as if looking at prey. Faced with their gaze, the boss was engulfed in an inner struggle, and little Five on his back had no breath left, his body growing stiffer, which made his heart even more anxious. Although he was a beggar, living at the lowest strata of society, many people humiliated him, but he had never thought about killing anyone. At most he just wanted to beat up those who bullied him. In his view, killing was an unforgivable act, but his younger brother, Little Five, was still waiting for him to rescue. The boss took a deep breath, he looked up at the 3 white foxes and gritted his teeth. "This is it. Take my life to save my brother, and let my brother serve you as a servant for a lifetime." Little Five was disabled, and life was hard to manage by himself. If he could be tied to these 3 demons, perhaps he could find a better way out. Although demons were not as powerful as the immortal gods, they were still not comparable to ordinary people. What if the demons could make Little Five grow legs? Hearing what the boss said, the 3 white foxes were stunned for a moment, and then they started giggling. "Your brother is a cripple. Is he supposed to serve us, or should we serve him?" "Mortal, you think too much. Such a coward doesn't even deserve to serve us." Facing the demon's mockery, the boss was not angry, just more nervous and uneasy. He finally had a chance to save his brother. How could he give up? "As long as you are willing to go into the city and kill, we can make your brother normal, repairing the physical defects, And there are plenty of evil people in this city. It's not just your brother you'd be saving. One white fox said with a profound meaning, which made a new light shine in the boss' eyes. At the same time, Guan stood under a nearby tree watching this scene. These 3 white foxes were Tier 2 demons, comparable to the Foundation Establishment realm, still unable to undergo transformation. What they said was true, hoping the boss would kill the evil people in the city. They dared not act personally, because there were immortal cultivation sects nearby that would capture and kill misbehaving demons, thinking that using the boss as a proxy would be enough to deceive everyone. Guan had no intention of interfering. Even if people died because of this, he wouldn't care. He had rescued too many beings before. Now he wouldn't hesitate over the life and death of one person. Of course, if someone truly moved his heart, he would act as he wished. Eventually, the boss agreed. He put down Little Five and then returned to the city alone. As soon as he left, the 3 white foxes surrounded Little Five and began casting spells to protect his soul. Little Five's lifespan and maximum lifespan were not merely 15 years old. Indeed, they had ways to save his life, but from now on, it would be hard for him to sever ties with demons. Guan watched for a while, and then disappeared from the spot. Even though there were 3 white foxes altering his fate, Little Five's life was destined not to ascend to immortality. This was the punishment Guan had in mind for the celestial spirit god. Guan wouldn't deliberately manipulate the celestial spirit god's birth and life experiences, but would set a limit on his life. The summer night wind still carried a bit of cold. One white fox suddenly shivered and said in a low voice, "Why am I a bit worried, feeling like this might cause trouble?" The fox next to her glared and scolded. "What's there to be afraid of? Are you going to be a concubine for that profligate young master from the city lord's mansion?" "I don't want to, he looks so disgusting. Mainly because he bullies too much. We must kill him, and once that guy comes back, we'll pass on his martial arts to him." "It can only be so." The voices of the 3 white foxes gradually quieted down, and eventually, the woods fell into a silent, oppressive and terrifying stillness. Sand filled the sky, and on a cliff, Zhang Buku with all white hair stood at the edge, shirtless, looking down at the blood lake below. His upper body was muscular, full of power, with blood streaks twisting, making him look even more terrifying. A Buddha head flew out from the sand. It was the Buddha Immortal. Buddha Immortal looked at Zhang Buku, his stone face showing a complicated expression. He was forced to teach Zhang Buku to cultivate, but he hadn't expected Zhang Buku to be so suited to his Tao, far exceeding his expectations. If he could really possess Zhang Buku, maybe he could surpass this life in the next one. Just thinking about it made him regret. Of course, even with several more courage, he wouldn't dare act recklessly. Just the thought of how Guan felt pressing down on his head made him shiver in fear. Zhang Buku turned to look at the Buddha Immortal and asked, "Where is the realm master of the divine exotic realm now?" Buddha Immortal replied, "According to your wish, I have sent him to one great thousand world, and he is now very safe. If I find out you've deceived me, this favor will turn into hatred. Rest assured, since I've already done this much, why would I kill him? He's in the Tai's great world. Once your cultivation ends, I will send you to that great world. There, the opportunities are abundant, and the control of the immortal gods is weak. It's a perfect place for your growth." The Buddha Immortal didn't take offense to Zhang Buku's rudeness, and replied calmly. Thousands of years had passed, and he had now shifted his mindset, beginning to look forward to Zhang Buku's future. Zhang Buku had such a powerful being behind him, yet they hoped he would mentor Zhang Buku, seeing it as an opportunity. No matter how high his realm might be, one always needed a backing. Should the celestial court discover him one day, perhaps he could rely on the existence behind Zhang Buku. Hearing the Buddha Immortal's answer, Zhang Buku asked no more. After cultivating in this realm for so many years, his heart had also calmed down. Rather than dwelling on calculations he couldn't resist, it was better to grasp the time and diligently cultivate. He raised his right hand, and a bloody wind emerged from his palm, forming a small vortex. In an instant, the yellow sand from the sky rushed over, and his right hand rose higher until a yellow sand tornado appeared on his palm, becoming increasingly spectacular. The Buddha Immortal asked in surprise, You can already feel the force of heaven and earth in this realm? Indeed, it doesn't seem difficult. I'm curious. Can I use the control over the force of heaven and earth in other great worlds? Zhang Buku replied. The Buddha immortal smiled and said, naturally, the great world I opened is not weak. Moreover, this realm has existed for an incredibly long time. If you can control this realm, you could use the force of heaven and earth in other great worlds. Upon hearing this, Zhang Buku's mouth curled into an almost arrogant smile. At that moment, he thought of Master Gu and Li Ya. During the long years of cultivation, he often thought of these two people, relying on the remembrance of old friends to recall where he came from and where he would go in the future. Master Gu, Li Ya, you can't imagine how strong I've become now. I really hope to let you witness my growth. Zhang Buku was surging with emotions, growing stronger, gaining more and more confidence. If Master Gu and Li Ya were already dead, Zhang Buku would also go to seek them through reincarnation. Isn't immortal cultivation all about pursuing one's desires? What he desired was to enjoy drinks and travel the universe with Master Gu and Li Ya. The Buddha immortal looked at the tornado in Zhang Buku's hand and thought of another person, wondering if Zhang Buku would ever have the chance to compete with that individual. Buddha immortal, how much longer until I can leave? Don't rush. I have one more divine skill to teach you. Once you master it, you can leave. Oh, what is this divine skill? It will allow you to travel through the 3,000 great worlds, wandering freely along the river of great Tao. If that's really possible, then I must visit the river of destiny you mentioned. Hearing Zhang Buku bring up the river of destiny, the Buddha immortal smiled and said, if you go to the river of destiny, you must be wary of one person. S.E. the Oval Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Who? That person's name is Lu Qiuxian. His Tao practice is profound and unfathomable. He will find everyone who enters the river of destiny and ask them some questions. You must not offend him. Lu Qiuxian. Zhang Buku noted the name, recognizing that this was a presence that even the Buddha immortal feared and not someone he could provoke. 100 years had passed since Xiao Wu's resurrection. Guan hadn't visited him, only occasionally glancing at him. This year, the name of Li Ya had once again spread within the 9-spirit continent. Li Ya and the Saint of the Shaking Light Saint sect had arranged a life and death duel at the human world peak to settle their karma. The day of the duel had not yet arrived, but the news had spread wildly. In today's vast celestial spirit great world, albeit within the domain formerly belonging to the celestial spirit great earth, both Li Ya and the Saint from Shaking Light Saint sect were world-renowned prodigies. I didn't expect Li Ya to gain such popularity. It seems the world is just SOSO. Back in the day, Li Ya had no power to fight back against me. LV Xian was boasting about his past accomplishments, within Sheng Tian, Jiang Shi, Chen Chuan, Celestial Cyan, and Tian by listening. Having cultivated in the Taoist field of the beginningless for so many years, their cultivation levels had reached loose immortal, and with the divine skills and spells they possessed, they were full of confidence, feeling that no pure cultivators from the outside world could match them. Tian Bai tilted his head and said, Li Ya has the #1 divine sword in the world. Even if your cultivation level is higher than his, I'm afraid he's not someone you can defeat. LV Xian glared and said, relying on a magical treasure doesn't make a hero. I only believe in my physical body. Just then, an Xian appeared out of nowhere and said, think about what kind of magical treasure you all want. Master is preparing to craft magical treasures for everyone. Upon hearing this, everyone looked at LV Xian. LV Xian's face turned red, and he coughed falsely. Why are you looking at me? I've already had ideas. Search the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 559. 10,000 Years of Refining Treasure. Guan's sect hearing LV Xian's words, Celestial Cyan, Jiang Shi, and others couldn't help but roll their eyes. They hadn't been clinging to LV Xian. Instead, they began to discuss the magical treasures they each desired. An Excian was in charge of taking notes. After recording their needs, she would then go to find others. An hour later, an Excian arrived at Guan's courtyard. At the moment, Guan was sitting in front of a great cauldron. His right hand was burning with the 3 pristine true fire as he stared at the flame in his hand, his expression calm and contemplative. "Master, I've asked everyone," an Excian said softly, standing next to Guan, holding a stack of paper in her hands. She found it strange. Given her master and the others' abilities, why did she need to run around? Direct communication would do. She figured her master was messing with her, but as a disciple, what could she say? Put it to the side for now, and assist your teacher in what comes next. Guan tossed the 3 pristine true fire beneath the cauldron, and then began to speak. As his voice fell, a considerable number of exotic ores and medicinal herbs flew out from his sleeves. And Zin's eyes lit up. She had long wanted to learn artifact refining, and yearned for a magical treasure suitable for her. Guan remained seated, casting spells from a distance, transferring materials for artifact refining into the cauldron. An Excian approached the great cauldron, using her divine sense to peek into its contents. Guan was preparing to refine a magic artifact with his own Dao intent, creating a magical treasure unique to his path. It would be a drawn-out process. By the next day at noon, Guan had left an Excian to keep watch while he went to gather medicinal herbs alone. This task was crucial. He had restrained his murderous impulses and greed, so he must not be negligent in harvesting. His annual lifespan income had stabilized around 30 million years. He could continue to improve, but he didn't want to overexert himself or attract too much trouble. The celestial spirit great world had restored order, and for the time being, faced no attacks from forces beyond. For Guan, that was the best kind of life. But destiny was unpredictable, and he couldn't draw the attention of beings from other great worlds to shatter this peace, especially from the celestial court. As long as the heavenly Tao loomed over the celestial spirit great world, Guan couldn't ignore the threat of the celestial court. Time flies like an arrow. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years passed. At noon, within the Taoist field of the beginningless, Guan lay on a rocking chair, pulling up his attribute panel to check. Name, Guan S. Ia the Novelier. NET website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Lifespan, 11,587/78, 746, 346, 201. Physique. Primordial reincarnation undying body. Cultivation level. Balancing heaven golden immortal realm perfection. Nearly 80 billion years of lifespan. Guan pondered when to break through. He had already comprehensively improved himself. In theory, he could successfully break through with 100 billion years of lifespan, but there was always the chance of failure. It was better to wait until he had 200 billion years of lifespan to attempt the breakthrough. Guan stood up and sent a message to the celestial demon child. Shortly after, the celestial demon child appeared in the courtyard, looking excitedly at Guan and asking, "Master, is my magical treasure ready?" Since Guan mentioned 1,000 years ago that he planned to refine magical treasures for everyone, they had all been eagerly waiting. The longer the wait, the higher their expectations. Refining a magical treasure with Guan's Tao practice was not a challenge. A lengthy process meant one thing. Their magical treasures would be powerful. Guan nodded with a smile, then waved his sleeve, and a white ribbon flew out from the great cauldron. It was as nimble as flowing cloud, quickly landing into the hands of the celestial demon child. The celestial demon child's eyes sparkled, instantly falling in love with the ribbon. "This is the year's colorful cloud ribbon. A Tao treasure that I've refined, imbued with the will of the great Tao. You can meditate on it for your daily cultivation. Your current Tao practice is insufficient to unleash its true power," Guan briefly explained. As his voice dropped, the year's colorful cloud ribbon burst into a bright light, enveloping the celestial demon child, and leaving her rooted to the spot. She began to inherit memories, another of Guan's touches, learning how to make the Tao treasure recognize its master. An Excian sat to the side, looking bemused. Over the years, she hadn't seen how the year's colorful cloud ribbon was formed, and for most of the time, Guan was absent, with her being the one to watch over it. She even suspected that the Tao treasure had been completed long ago. When in doubt, she would ask. When facing her master, she never held back. "This is a Tao treasure, a treasure of the great Tao," Guan answered. "You can't see its shaping process. It must be sensed with your Tao. The fact that you haven't discovered it yet means your Tao isn't strong enough." Those words made an Xian feel ashamed. Guan often lectured them on the Tao, and each lecture was a matter of creation. A grand opportunity that cultivators from the outside world couldn't hope to encounter in their lifetimes. Yet she failed to grasp the Tao, which filled her heart with shame. Little did she know, their Tao intent was already strong enough. Many divine thought true immortals, even though stronger than them, couldn't match their Tao intent. Guan could tell that everyone in the dojo possessed the ability to fight beyond their realms, but he chose not to elaborate. With a heaven-balancing golden immortal as a teacher, such achievements were to be expected. While the celestial demon child was still assimilating memories, Guan turned and looked into the distance, mumbling to himself, "Still refusing to give up, huh?" Hearing his words, an Xian asked curiously, "Master, who are you talking about? Tang Kai?" Hundreds of years ago, unable to resist, Tang Kai had gone to find Liya, even calling out to her in the woods outside the dojo and bidding her farewell before she departed. Guan smiled and said, "Not her. I'm talking about a little demon you've never met." Seeing that he was reluctant to elaborate, an Xian didn't press further. In her view, her master, who often went out, must have spread opportunities far and wide. Wondering when the Taoist field of the beginningless would gain new people, time continued to speed up with her thoughts. The news of the celestial demon child receiving a Tao treasure quickly stirred up the dojo. Then, the age-colored cloud silk enveloped the entire sky of the dojo, suppressing all within, immobilizing them, which drove everyone, including an Xian, insane. An Xian even felt that the age-colored cloud silk was second only to her master's fate pen and power. How could she not be excited? Guan maintained a Tao treasure every 1,000 years. The second to receive a Tao treasure was Shenzhen, and her Tao treasure was called the Void Rebirth Zither, whose strings could shake destiny, causality, and even reincarnation, quite domineeringly. Next was the Blood Prison Great Saint, who received a saber named the Heaven-Breaking Blood Prison Saber, which contained the great Tao of slaughter and hinted at ruling the laws of destruction. Jiang Shi received the Immortal Slaying Flying Saber, another Tao treasure for slaying and fighting, reminding him of the Immortal Slaying Flying Saber from the Investiture of the Gods, which he liked very much. Celestial Cyan received the Cyan Hong Linglong Tower, and Tian Bai received the White Spirit Exquisite Tower, both Tao treasures not inferior to the others. Together, their might was even greater, named after Yi Lan's White Spirit Sword and Guian's Cyan Hong Sword. And Sheng Tian received the Shaking God Spear, its essence filled with fighting will, second only to the Heaven-Breaking Blood Prison Saber in terms of killing power. Chen Chuan got the Reincarnation Tao Slaying Sword. Able to comprehend the path of reincarnation, Guan hoped he could remember his past life on his own. LV Xian received the 12 Extreme Heaven Calming World Bead. 12 silver beads that could each create or devour worlds, encapsulating the path of devouring. An Xian got the 6 Paths Mirror, which could reflect reincarnation and send others into it. During the process of refining Tao treasures, Guan also pondered these great Tao. The 3,000 great Tao are omnipresent, and the Taoist dominator skill could assist Guan in his contemplation directly. These Tao treasures all had the power to surpass Immortal Path ultimate treasures, and would continue to grow stronger with their owners' achievements in the great Tao, their limits unfathomable. At the very least, these Tao treasures were stronger than the 9 Extremes Sacred Heart Sword in Li Ya's hands. A Tao treasure every 1,000 years. Except for the Ghost Mother of Ephemera, everyone received a Tao treasure, indicating 9,000 years had passed. Guan, now over 20,000 years old, possessed a lifespan of over 340 billion years. The sunlight spilled down as everyone surrounded an Xian, inquiring about her 6 Paths Mirror, her face full of excited smiles. Finally done with work, it's time to make a breakthrough. Guan thought to himself silently, looking back on the 9,000 years that had passed. Even he couldn't help but marvel at how swiftly time had flown. As there were no external threats, these 9,000 years were uneventful, a repetition of days. From refining the age-colored cloud silk, Guan spent 10,000 years crafting Tao treasures for his disciples, and through this process he continued his cultivation. 10,000 years later, even without using lifespan evolution, his power had significantly improved. Master, aside from you, is there anyone else who can refine Tao treasures? Chen Chuan looked at Guan, asking curiously. Holding the reincarnation Tao-slaying sword, even after 2,000 years, he was still enamored with it. The others followed suit. Looking at Guan, Guan smiled and said, "Perhaps there are others, but your Tao treasures were forged with my great Tao. In the future, I could help strengthen your Tao treasures, and even use them to connect with you." At those words, everyone became even more excited, which meant they could rely on Guan anytime. Even if they went out in the future, couldn't they? Master, why not establish a sect? There's no need to recruit many disciples, but at least we could set a banner. In the future, when we introduce ourselves, we can declare which immortal sect we belong to and also add luster to your reputation. Blood Prison Great Saint suddenly suggested, with the others echoing him. This was a plan they had long discussed and were waiting for the right moment to propose. Guan had already heard their discussions over the years, and had also been contemplating this matter. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 560. The Primordial Era, Primordial Chaos Body. During the long years of cultivation within the Taoist field of the beginningless, LV Xian, Chen Chuan, and others would fantasize about traversing the human world. And they too wanted to forge a resounding reputation like Li Ye. They felt grateful towards Guan in their hearts, thinking that he should not be forgotten by the people. If Guan did not want to come into the limelight, then as his disciples, it was their duty to help their master propagate his holy name. Everyone looked at Guan with fervent gazes, waiting for him to confirm the name of their sect. Guan pondered and said, "Let's take the name of the dojo for our own. For we shall be called the Beginningless. We have no sect, no door, no clan nor path. Beginningless implies no start and hence is the realm of eternity. I will chase after the realm of eternal immortality. And I hope that you will uphold my will, and eventually break free from the shackles of the 3,000 great Tao to become true carefree immortals." Upon hearing this, everyone was ignited with excitement, praising the name one after another. Beginningless is excellent indeed. From now on, I shall introduce myself thus. I am Beginningless LV Xian. Sounds dominant already. Ha ha ha. I also think it's good. Adding sect or gate would have been rather trite. Perhaps many years from now, the Beginningless will become the most mysterious place in the great thousand world, with countless people yearning to pursue it, yet unable to find the way. Fantastic, now that the name of our force is set, I'm even more motivated. From now on, I'll fight for the Beginningless. Listening to the discussions of his disciples, Guan shook his head with a wry smile, and without saying more, turned and left. Millennia passed, and the disciples exchanged knowledge with one another. They had already learned how to use Tao treasures, and also understood Guan's attitude towards them, that they would not be misused. Once Guan had left, everyone became even bolder. Chen Chuan excitedly asked, "Tell me, is my reincarnation Tao-slaying sword more powerful, or is Elder Li's 9 Extreme Sacred Heart Sword stronger?" Wuxia World. Sidon Xian gave him a look and said, "Don't think about such questions, we should show elderly respect." LV Xian snorted. "What's wrong with being stronger than him? Respect is kept in the heart. Who knows, he might one day depend on us for rescue. I think Tao treasures are stronger than Immortal Path Ultimate treasures. If you can comprehend the great Tao within a Tao treasure, you should be able to feel its vast Tao intent. Our beginningless Tao treasures will surely be the most powerful magical treasures." After hearing this, an Xian looked at the Six Paths mirror in her hand with a smile on her face. Seeing her not keeping a stern face, the others also smiled and actively discussed the power of the Tao treasures. Though an Xian was of the same generation as them, she had unconsciously established great prestige, and everyone knew Guan doted on her the most. Even Shenzhen would not act too willfully in front of an Xian. The ghost mother of ephemera stood at the back of the crowd with a fiery heart. Although she had not obtained a Tao treasure, she felt this was as it should be, given she was not Gu An's disciple, and had entered the Taoist field of the beginningless as a prisoner. Guan summoning her was clearly a signal. She wanted a Tao treasure too. Perhaps I shouldn't be methodically completing my tasks. I should be more proactive. The master likes to pick medicinal herbs. Why not find a way to increase the production of medicinal herbs? The ghost mother of ephemera thought, so as she looked at the people around her. In the reshaped great thousand world that had seen 10,000 years pass, the human world had taken on a new appearance. The holy court had completely dissolved, and now the war of thousand sects was raging, with no sect showing the dominance to unify the world, for the heavens and earth had become more vast than before. Despite the multitude of sects, this period had gained a unified definition. The primordial era. A new great thousand world was established, where the heavens met the earth and all things bloomed anew. Such a time was known as the primordial, the beginning of everything. The sects that had survived the previous era, and made it to the primordial era, had all become overlord-level forces. The Supreme Sect was one such power. Now, the Supreme Sect dominated the 7 seas and the 3 continents, its influence surpassing even that of the 7-star spirit realm, and the star sea congregations of old times. In the 3rd Medicine Valley, which 10,000 years later still held its esteemed position, because the sect leader resided in this Medicine Valley. Inside a bamboo forest in the valley, Long Qing, wearing a loose white robe, sat cross-legged on the ground. With unruly hair, he had left his youthful features behind, becoming more composed and unfathomable, looking like a true enlightened being amid the forest. A figure appeared out of nowhere before him. It was Candle Star from the battle court. This reshaped great thousand world seems less like it has been reconstructed, and more like reborn. Many heaven and earth ultimate treasures have emerged between the heavens and earth. Over the years, I have fought over them as well. I didn't expect to encounter the blockade of profound Yuan-free immortal. Those old undying beings hidden in the depths of the universe have all returned. Candle Star sighed. Clashing swords with profound Yuan-free immortal made me fully realize that this world has truly become a part of the great thousand world. Just like the other vast worlds I've been to, there's always trouble brewing. Long Qing didn't open his eyes and said calmly, "What's wrong? Have you lost confidence in uniting Tianyi and replacing the battle court?" Candle Star chuckled. "How could that be? I've already seized that ultimate treasure. Am currently brewing the body refinement medicinal broth. In at most 100 years, Long Tongue will be able to cultivate the primordial chaos physique. The legends of the primordial era are not to be taken lightly. Every major world will go through such a period." The Long Tongue he spoke of was Long Qing's son Long Tongue. Long Tongue had taken Candle Star as his master, and Candle Star was extremely dedicated to cultivating Long Tongue. Their relationship as teacher and pupil was even closer than that of father and son. Long Qing was not pleased to hear this. Since Long Jun had appeared, Candle Star had clearly started to treat Long Qing as though he were dead, and thus focused his cultivation efforts on Long Qing's son. Candle Star discerned Long Qing's upset mood, which he thought was caused by the fate he carried. He thus tried to comfort him. "Long Jun has been gone for thousands of years. Both the battle court and the silent destruction god emperor have yet to emerge. Perhaps your destiny has changed." Candle Star still shuddered at the memory of the great war from 10,000 years ago. Such a mighty celestial spirit god was exterminated so easily. He had not seen Gu An's true form, but he guessed that the person was the supporting Tao Sword Venerable. Not just him, most of the beings at the level of free immortals, and those in the Tao Fruit realm made the same guess, contributing to the rise of the Supreme Sect. Now, the Supreme Sect already had several divine thought true immortals under Candle Star's manipulation. Aside from those elders who had karmic ties with Guan, the Elder Hall had undergone a complete change of blood. With Long Qing out of sight, Candle Star held the greatest power in the Supreme Sect. Most of the current disciples of the Supreme Sect were born in the primordial era, so they didn't see Candle Star as an outsider. When they joined the sect, Candle Star was already the strongest in the Supreme Sect, and to this day, all disciples look up to him. As for the supporting Tao Sword Venerable, that had become an ethereal legend. But with the existence of the heaven repairing platform, No one doubted the veracity of this tale. Hearing that destiny might have changed, Longqing opened his eyes. He looked at Candlestar and asked, if the Great Thousand World were to develop to its peak, could it confront the battle court? Candlestar pondered. The battle court controls several Great Thousand Worlds and has risen above them. Of course, the potential of the Great Thousand World is limitless. Some powerful Great Thousand Worlds are even territories the battle court dares not tread. Are there really such Great Thousand Worlds? Longqing asked with raised eyebrows. Having recovered the memories of his past life, he knew well the might of the battle court. However, he had been born in this universe in his past life, and was not familiar with other Great Thousand Worlds. Of course, Hongming, 9 Extremes, Taisher, Taiqing, Taiwei. These 5 Great Thousand Worlds are places the battle court dares not overstep. Although I haven't been to them, the Lord of the War Court is extremely wary of these worlds. Moreover, besides the Great Thousand Worlds, there are other planes of existence. They may not exist according to world rules, but they too have nurtured incredibly potent forces. Candlestar paused and said with heavy emphasis, although the battle court is strong, it is far from the strongest. As long as you maintain hope, your limits will certainly surpass theirs. I've always felt that the Long clan is at the core of the battle court. Sooner or later, the Long clan will surpass the battle court and reclaim its power. Upon hearing this, Longqing's eyes lit up with spirit. Just then, a woman appeared out of thin air beside them. Father Yitsong has returned, seeking justice for his father. He wields an immortal path ultimate treasure, and has already penetrated the first sea domain. He might arrive at Taitsong continent today. The woman was Longqing's daughter, Longya, and her expression was complex when she mentioned Yitsong. Longqing said pensively, in the end he has grown up. 9,000 years ago, I felt his destiny pattern was extraordinary. Candlestar, however, said dismissively, what does having an extraordinary destiny pattern matter? He shouldn't have trampled on the face of the Supreme Sect. Personal grudges could be discussed privately. Let him come. It'll make him understand that even with his exceptional talent, 9,000 years of cultivation is far from enough to shake the foundation of the Supreme Sect. Longqing hesitated for a moment and then said, don't harm his life after all. He was once my disciple. Some misunderstandings, I think, should be discussed face to face. With a huff, Candlestar vanished on the spot. Once he had gone, Longya let out a sigh of relief. She came up to Longqing and whispered, Father, I've heard that Yitsong has cultivated the primordial chaos body, astonishing the heavens and startling the ghosts. Even the saintess of the Guangyuan Saint sect admires him. Not only is his cultivation level formidable, but he also has a powerful backing now. Longqing glanced at her and retorted, so what? What's your point? Longya glared and said, what point can I have? I'm only reminding you that I did let him down, but you were the one who truly pushed him away from the Supreme Sect. You cared too much for the Supreme Sect, causing your disciple to suffer. With that, Longya stomped away. Longqing wasn't angry. He looked up slightly towards the bamboo forest above and murmured, Master, faced with such a dilemma, what would you choose? He had taken on many disciples over 10,000 years, but as the sect leader, he always considered the disciples of the Supreme Sect more, hoping his own disciples could bear more since they had enjoyed more of the Supreme Sect's resources. The return of Yitsong did not alarm Longqing. It merely made him miss his master. Chapter 561. Breakthrough to Taiqing Golden Immortal Realm Perfection Hidden Spirit Palace. After Guan picked the medicinal herbs, he looked towards Chun Luo and Su Ling who were cultivating in the distance, who were now at the Loose Immortal Realm. A long process from Loose Immortal Realm to Wandering Immortal Realm. Even disciples within the Taoist field of the beginningless were pushing through the Loose Immortal Realm. After so many years, Chen Chuan had not encountered another mysterious cause and effect attack, and Guan was wondering whether or not to let Chen Luo and Su Ling go. Not everyone enjoyed staying in one place to tirelessly cultivate. Deep-sea dragon carp came to Guan's side, still dressed in white. Although his features still carried the soft beauty of a woman, compared to 10,000 years ago, he carried a more distinct presence, making it clear he was not a female demon. Master, do you need me to call them? Deep-sea dragon Carp asked respectfully. He was also at the loose immortal realm, but his minor realm far surpassed both Chunluo and Su Ling. Compared to the two, Deep-sea dragon Carp's heart was simple. He just wanted to cultivate. Initially, to enter the hidden spirit palace, he had endured countless hardships, and he still remembered them, so he had no desire to leave. No need. What magical treasure do you want? Guan asked while stretching his muscles. Magical treasure? Deep-sea dragon Carp's eyes lit up. He pondered for a moment, and said, I want a large flag, preferably one that could control the ocean. Although he was already aware of the existence beyond the celestial boundary, his heart was still with the ocean. As he read more books, he also began to form a goal, which was to dominate the ocean. Wuxia world. Sight Wuxia world. Sight. He wanted all creatures in the ocean to worship him as their lord. After hearing his request, Guan just nodded slightly without saying much. Refining 10 Dao treasures had not made him feel tired, because in this process he was also comprehending the great Dao, and looking back, it still felt wonderful. Thus, he decided to continue crafting Dao treasures. Of course, not everyone could receive his Dao treasures. Like Chunluo and Su Ling, Guan saving them had already been in consideration of Chen Chuan's face. As his realm continued to rise, Guan naturally became more emotionally stable, making it even harder for someone to truly find a place in his heart and garner his concern than reaching the heavens. He was inherently someone who kept old loyalties. Go and cultivate, I'll be leaving soon. Seeing Deep-sea dragon Carp standing by not willing to leave, Guan spoke to send him away. He continued to stand there, admiring sections of the medicine garden in the hidden spirit palace, while he activated the lifespan breakthrough function. You have initiated the lifespan breakthrough function. Based on your current realm, you have been offered the following breakthrough locations. 1. Celestial Extreme 9 Heavens. 2. Ascending to Yellow Heaven. 3. Taiwei Earth Core. 4. Netherworld Deep Sea. 5. Desperate Celestial Tomb. 6. Path of the Great Tao. 7. Azura Abyss. 8. Misty Immortal Court. 9. Ling Mountain. Many of these places had appeared before. This time Guan directly ruled out Celestial Extreme 9 Heavens. He carefully pondered these names, and he was very interested in Ling Mountain. In Huaxia mythology, Ling Mountain was the Buddhist sect's dojo. Now that Celestial Court had appeared, he was not sure if this Ling Mountain was the same as the one in the mythology. Despite his curiosity, Guan did not want to go to Ling Mountain. He vaguely felt that the waters of Ling Mountain were very deep. Other places looked very expansive, while Ling Mountain seemed like just one mountain. Even though the lifespan breakthrough transfer locations are temporarily safe, he did not want to risk it. For him, the bigger the better for breakthrough locations, so even if anomalies were created, no one would intrude into the lifespan barrier. Thinking it over, Guan decided to go to the desperate celestial tomb. There should be no powerful beings in the tomb, or if there were, they would be sealed. Also, for some reason, seeing the desperate celestial tomb, Guan felt a connection to this place. Transporting to desperate celestial tomb will consume 10 billion years of lifespan. Do you wish to continue? Continue. The thought had just arisen when an unusual state that he had not felt in a long time enveloped Guan. He closed his eyes, losing all senses. After a while, Guan felt his feet touch the ground. He immediately initiated the lifespan barrier, and then opened his eyes. What entered his eyes were a series of ruined palaces, and ancient stone pillars towering into the clouds. The ground undulating unevenly, no flowers or grass in sight, only yellow soil and rocks, with the far-off dust swirling into the sky, making the end of the scene indistinct. Vast and desolate, this was Guan's first impression. The Tao spiritual qi here was very dense, even denser than in the celestial extreme 9 heavens, but the aura of the Tao here was not as abundant, with the path of cause and effect being particularly outstanding. This was actually good for Guan. Even though he had begun to explore other paths of the Tao, the path of cause and effect was still his main focus. Looking around, Guan did not feel the presence of any living beings. The desperate celestial tomb was bigger than he had anticipated, endless to his heart-eyes sight. He was curious whether the whole world was inside the celestial tomb, or if this place was hiding it. He sat down on the spot, and pulled up his attribute panel to check. Name: Guan Lifespan, 2587/338, 542, 709 068. Physique. Primordial reincarnation undying body. Cultivation level. Balancing heaven golden immortal realm perfection. Over 330 billion years of lifespan. This time he would surely succeed in breaking through. Guan was filled with confidence. The last time he broke through, each crossing the tribulation had to wait 100 million years. Now that he had improved in all aspects, the waiting time needed for crossing the tribulation should not increase by many times. He immediately invested 10 billion years of lifespan into his cultivation level. You practiced qi absorption cultivation for 200 million years. You forcefully assaulted the Tai-Ching golden immortal realm using your great achievement with the Taoist dominator skill. Started crossing the tribulation. But you did not endure the 3,000 golden immortal breaking Tao tribulations. Crossing the tribulation failed. You practiced qi absorption cultivation for 400 million years. You forcefully assaulted the Tai-Ching golden immortal realm using your great achievement with the Taoist dominator skill. Started crossing the tribulation. But you did not endure the 3,000 golden immortal breaking Tao tribulations. Crossing the tribulation failed. It was indeed the Tai-Ching golden immortal. Once every 200 million years for a crossing the tribulation, not bad. In reality, a failed tribulation could mean severe injuries or even annihilation. Being able to restore cultivation level and condition within 200 million years at this level was rare. Quickly, the 10 billion years of lifespan were exhausted, all efforts ending in failure. Guan was not panicked at all. This was just the beginning. Another 10 billion years of lifespan. One notification after another popped up. But Guan's attention was drawn to a huge palace in the distance. That massive palace was over 1,000,000 miles away from him. Compared to the surrounding structures, it was exceptionally magnificent. The gates alone were over 10,000 zhang high. For a moment earlier, Guan felt a faint and eerie presence from that palace that disappeared quickly, as if it was his imagination. It seemed that this desperate celestial tomb hid secrets. After all the prompts on his panel disappeared, Guan continued to invest 10 billion years of lifespan. Failure. Invest again. Failure. Invest again. Finally, success. You practiced qi absorption cultivation for 5,900,000,000 years. You forcefully assaulted the Tai-Ching golden immortal realm, using your great achievement with the Taoist dominator skill. Started crossing the tribulation. You endured the 3,000 golden immortal breaking Tao tribulations. Crossing the tribulation succeeded. Your cultivation level broke through to the early stage of Tai-Ching golden immortal realm. You practiced qi absorption cultivation for 100 billion years. Your cultivation level improved. A massive amount of Tao spiritual qi immediately surged towards Guan. He didn't stop but continued to invest lifespan. The lifespan required to move from the early stage to the mid-stage of the Tai-Ching golden immortal realm far exceeded his imagination, costing him 200 billion years of lifespan. That was truly frightening. However, thinking of the 9 heavens Siam bird who was only in the early stage of Tai-Ching golden immortal realm despite being over 200 billion years old, he felt more at ease. After all, this was the Tai-Ching golden immortal, a realm unimaginable to the beings of the celestial spirit great world. He continued to invest lifespan until his cultivation level reached the perfection of Tai-Ching golden immortal realm. From early stage to perfection, he had spent nearly 100 billion years of lifespan altogether, and he still had over 1.8 billion years of lifespan left. Meanwhile, anomalies began to appear in the desperate celestial tomb. Tao spiritual qi surged from all directions, forming devastating tornadoes, and runes appeared intermittently in the sky, akin to thunder, oppressively intense. Guan turned his gaze back to the distant huge palace. That trace of eerie presence he had caught earlier reappeared. His eyes intently focused on that half-open giant door, behind which was darkness, ominously severe. After a while, as Guan basked in the luminance of the great Tao, he squinted because he saw a figure walking out from that door. The figure was as large as an ordinary person, seeming minuscule like dust within the doorway. From its shape, it seemed to be a person. Chapter 562. Sin, the catastrophe of the supreme sect under Guan's gaze. A young boy with a full head of black hair walked out from the door. He looked to be just over 10 years old, very thin, dressed in a pair of tattered pants, his face smeared with dirt. He stood in the shadow of the gate, looking around nervously. Sin, Nirvana Realm 0/9999/9999. His cultivation level in the Nirvana realm wasn't particularly strong, but his causality was extremely complex. Even someone as powerful as Guan couldn't see through it. The tangled, complicated causality was intricately related to the Tao rules within the desperate celestial tomb. At first glance, Guan felt like the boy was imprisoned here by the great Tao. But the key question was, how could he be 0 years old? Just born? Guan grew curious about Sin, but his immediate priority was to make a breakthrough. After watching for a while, he closed his eyes. The commotion caused by the breakthrough soon enveloped the entire desperate celestial tomb, making Sin at the gate even more nervous, to the point where he retracted back into the door, only poking his head out. As Guan closed his eyes, time flew by rapidly. An hour later, Guan successfully broke through to the Taiqing Golden Immortal Realm. The state of being a Taiqing Golden Immortal still revolved around the elevation of the Golden Immortal Tao fruit, above which appeared a patch of azure sky evolved from the Taiqing, reminding Guan of the Heavenly Tao. The Heavenly Tao encompassed the Great Thousand World just like this. Wuxia World. Sight reaching the Taiqing Golden Immortal Realm led to a transformation of his destiny pattern. Unbound by the constraints of the Great Tao, even without passing through a world gate, Guan could leap out of the Great World. He could even glimpse the domains beyond the Great Thousand World. Nothingness, chaos, utter emptiness, without even light. The desperate celestial tomb, like the Great Thousand World, though not as vast as the celestial spirit Great World, had a similar structure to the Great Thousand World. Aside from a leap in mana, his heart eye began to transform, and his divine sense, too, underwent transformation. As a Taiqing Golden Immortal, he could come and go as he pleased, his soul body reaching his thoughts instantly without any hindrance in the journey. Within the lifespan barrier, Guan's body shone with a strong light. Tao spiritual qi formed whirlwinds around him, appearing to hide thousands of stars flickering in brilliance. After fully stepping into the Taiqing Golden Immortal Realm, Guan started challenging higher minor realms. Only after reaching the late stages of the Taiqing Golden Immortal Realm did his thoughts return to reality, and when he opened his eyes again, his whole persona underwent a drastic change. He became more transcendent, exuding an aura of unparalleled dominance. Taiqing Golden Immortal, the pinnacle of the Golden Immortal Tao fruit, and also the sixth realm of the Tao fruit realm. The great Tao told Guan that very few beings reached this layer of the realm, a domain even the great Tao couldn't entirely restrict. Guan could feel that his Golden Immortal Tao fruit had reached its limit. Another breakthrough would grant him even greater favors, and his Tao fruit too would welcome a new transformation. The Tao spiritual qi continued to pour into Guan's body, the potent power of the great Tao surrounding him, as if protecting his breakthrough. Guan's gaze once again turned towards the distance. The giant palace gate no longer bore sight of Sin. He felt somewhat wistful, a feeling that left him confused. His intuition told him that he had some connection with Sin, a connection he couldn't recall, possibly because it pertained to the future. He felt it was likely related to lifespan reincarnation. Perhaps Sin had some connection with one of his reincarnation bodies from a past life. From the moment he saw the desperate celestial tomb, he had this sense, as if something here was waiting for him, something he was compelled to face. Guan gazed at the massive palace while lost in contemplation. Even though he had successfully made a breakthrough, he couldn't fully decipher the causality of the desperate celestial tomb. However, he was certain that the entire world was a celestial tomb, burying countless great powers' causality. He could even envision the scenes from before their deaths. The desperate celestial tomb seemed quiet, but was truly terrifying. Without the lifespan barrier, just 1 hour in the tomb would see Guan eaten away by mysterious forces within, making escape impossible. Whatever this force was, Guan couldn't tell, and he even sensed that this force was no less formidable than the Heavenly Tao. Time continued to pass. Guan had reached perfection in the Taiqing Golden Immortal Realm, but the strange phenomena within the desperate celestial tomb persisted. Aside from Sin, he detected no other presences, as if the desperate celestial tomb housed only Sin, a living spirit. Once his cultivation level stopped growing, Guan stood up, choosing to teleport back. As for the confusion brought about by sin, he decided to let time provide the answers, for with the lifespan breakthrough, there was always the possibility of returning in the future. After a while, Guan reappeared inside the hidden spirit palace. He pulled up his attribute panel, and just the breakthrough of the lifespan barrier alone had cost him 70 billion years of lifespan, leaving him with around 100 billion years. That's fine, there's lifespan left. After giving the deep-sea dragon carp that had already begun its cultivation practice a glance, Guan disappeared on the spot. He didn't return to the Taoist field of the beginningless, but took one step to arrive at the outer sect city of the Supreme Sect. It had been tens of thousands of years since he last returned to the Supreme Sect. Compared to the last era, the Supreme Sect was even more prosperous. Even the outer sect city had been expanded, and it was more vast than the sect's main city of before. Guan appeared out of thin air amid the crowd in the streets without attracting anyone's attention. Even when he appeared in front of the passing disciples, they only felt that he had an extraordinary demeanor, and were not confused about his sudden appearance, which was the effect of his Tao intent. He could influence people's perception, even manipulate their minds. The Supreme Sect was bustling today. As Guan strolled around, he listened to the discussions among the Supreme Sect disciples. I heard that Grand Elder Zhu Xing himself took action and still couldn't subdue Yi Tsang. Is the primordial chaos body really so domineering? Not exactly. Yi Tsang wields an immortal path ultimate treasure, and clearly, there is a prominent figure behind him. It is said that the Guangyuan Saint sect supporting him possesses great powers that transcend the 9 heavens of the immortal path. The Supreme Sect won't be overwhelmed, right? Yi Tsang was also once a disciple of our Supreme Sect, but now he has become our enemy. What exactly happened back then? Guan listened to these discussions without paying Yi Tsang any mind. The new era would give birth to new talents, especially since the current great heaven and earth are far stronger than in the last era. Before the Great Thousand World was reshaped, thousands of great heaven and earths were scattered across the universe. From ancient times to the present, entities wanting to transcend the free immortals realm would leave the great heaven and earth to seek opportunities in the universe, because their own heaven and earth could not help them reach higher realms. Now the Great Thousand World has been restored to its original state, and the heavenly Tao has re-emerged. Opportunities are everywhere, and more great powers are returning. Some come from the river of the great Tao, others from reincarnation. There are myriad ways, making the overall strength of the celestial spirit great world rapidly increasing. As for the celestial court, perhaps standing too high, they have not noticed this, and the battle court is even more elusive. Returning to the Supreme Sect, Guan mainly felt nostalgic and wanted to come back and take a look. He walked slowly, admiring the street scenes along the way, and before he knew it, he had arrived in front of the library pavilion. This time he didn't step inside. Compared to his last visit, the library pavilion had become majestically imposing, and he felt a sense of unfamiliarity. Old acquaintances kept surfacing in Guan's eyes, bringing a smile to his face. Though the old friends were no longer present, the memories of the past were so beautiful. Whenever he reminisced, his mood would become cheerful. Nowadays, very few people within the Supreme Sect could recognize Guan. These people are highly respected and often in seclusion, not the type to stroll around the outer sect city. Guan just stood in front of the library pavilion, looking at the building, lost in memories. The celestial vault behind him began to change color. Rolling thunderclouds approached from the horizon, quickly covering the sky above the outer sect city. As the world darkened, Guan's thoughts returned to the present. He turned around to look, and at the end of the earth, lightning flashed and thunder roared as if the apocalypse was upon them. Profound Yuan Free Immortal Realm's Grand Elder Zhu Xing couldn't stop Yi Tsang, or more accurately, couldn't stop the Immortal Path Ultimate Treasure in Yi Tsang's hand. The soul inside that Immortal Path Ultimate Treasure belonged to a heaven-encompassing free immortal from Luotian. And because it was just a soul, it could only exert the strength of a profound Yuan Free Immortal. Combined with the Immortal Path Ultimate Treasure, it had the power to sweep through its realm. Guan saw through the origin of that soul at a glance. This soul, named the Heaven-Supporting Ancestor, came from another great thousand world. When the celestial spirit god was preparing to destroy the great thousand world, he took advantage of the chaos in the great Daos order and sneaked in. He was fleeing a pursuit, with transcendent forces seeking to execute him. Later, the heaven-supporting ancestor encountered Yi Tsang. He was attracted by Yi Tsang's physique and, after thousands of years of companionship, they built a deep connection. Yi Tsang was determined to seek revenge, and the heaven-supporting ancestor could only support him. After defeating Zhu Xing, Yi Tsang rapidly advanced towards the supreme sect. Yi Tsang, who was over 9,000 years old, had already reached the cultivation level of a loose immortal, and was not far from the wandering immortal realm. His talent could indeed be considered top-tier in the current era. However, his strength was mainly due to his reliance on the heaven-supporting ancestor. The world was unaware of the existence of the heaven-supporting ancestor, so Yi Tsang's talent was overestimated even more. Simultaneously, on the edge of the continent, above the rolling thunderclouds, a man in black clothes advanced against the wind. His face was stern with sharp eyebrows and eyes. His right hand held an ancient cyan tower that continuously burst forth with rainbow light, battering the sea of clouds. He was Yi Tsang.